What's up, everybody? Welcome. How's my audio? How's my video? Welcome to another little Eat Meat Make Family stream. And guess what, guys? Today is a very special day. We're here with a close friend of the show here, Mr. Jay Dyer from jaysanalysis.com. Jay's got a YouTube channel. He's been on the show several times. We'd had some fun conversations in the past. I believe last time you guys saw Jay and I together, it was probably the Ask Yourself and Vegan Gains amazing debate where we got completely crushed by by Vegan Gains and Ask Yourself. So that was the last time you guys saw Jay on. What's up, Jay? How's it going, man?
Good. I'm just recovering from having been chewed up in those massive incisors of Ask Yourself and Vegan Gains, and having been digested through the colons of both of them, and having all of my life sucked out of me, and then being deposited out of the anuses of two microphone wreckers. Check.
Dude,
I'm trying to recover from that devastating.
Yeah, I can imagine, Jay. I mean, it's a little bit orthogonal what we're talking about today. It's a bit orthogonal to what we were talking about in that conversation. Dude, we really somebody needs to make that remix, the fact remix. That would be fantastic. Dude, did you see, Ask Yourself, someone sent me a video. He actually made a video declaration to the vegan community about how they need to change the definition of veganism so it removes all possible uses of should and
Are you serious?
I swear, dude. Hey, put this video out. Maybe we should. Should we watch that? Maybe I could get your.
Dude, these people, I'll tell you what, they're their own best refutation. I could never out argue their own apologetic against themselves, which is just their own behavior.
We don't even need to watch the video, but he essentially. Let me. I just want to get the title because I have it pulled up. What was it called? Oh, I had it pulled up. I have it on a tab. He essentially in the video though says that we need to change the definition of veganism, which the technical definition of veganism is. Let me actually look it up so I don't misquote it.
Don't misquote this, because this is a religious rite and you could be burned as a heretic.
Well, as a trans vegan, I don't want to be. I don't want to be responsible for blaspheming these. Their
vegan pontiff. The vegan pontiff will sick his UK soy cops on you to have you burned at the stake.
All right, Saint Gregorium of vasectomy will will not be happy. So veganism is a way of living which seeks to exclude as far as possible and practicable all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or other purpose. So he said we need to remove all uses of words and avoid all usage of words such as possible or practicable because it's impossible to define, and we're never going to be able to get through an argument with this. But I'm not even sure. He didn't get to the, how do we define exploitation or cruelty? So using words like unnecessary cruelty, he said we need to avoid. So yeah, he's reworking his system now to make himself more. He says more appealable in the mainstream. So he's looking for that. He's trying to get on that Piers Morgan debate train,
He wants to be on Dr. Phil.
That'd be so funny. Dr. Phil and Ask Yourself interviewing Vegan Gains on his daddy issues. There was that. Did you see that? There was a crazy.
I'll tell you what. The saddest part was the whole mob that they have to send to downvote everything.
Oh yeah.
Because if you have the best argument, if you can win the debate, why would you need mobs of people to come? Why would you have to organize on your Discord to have everybody come downvote the videos?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't it be clear that you have the best argument?
Absolutely. And he didn't really like having to actually question the presuppositions of his worldview at all. And he had it all set up in his mind. I thought it was so fascinating how guarded he was and how he'd already set up this whole bulwark of defense against ever getting to the point of questioning that. Why do you think people are so afraid of questioning the presuppositions of their worldview like that?
Well, because we hold paradigms like people hold to a faith. I mean, essentially, that's what our paradigm is the grounding of our whole system by which we read the world. So naturally, all of us are going to be a little, sketchy about wanting to question it, and especially if we feel like there might be an argument that would force us to have to change. That whole thing was, about how if something's logically true, there is a logical force by which you should accept, a better argument. You should accept the truthfulness of something as opposed to the falsehood of something. And everybody knows this is true. Everybody knows it, a priori, it's obviously that's the case. Otherwise, there's no point. You can't debate. If that's not true, then both sides of the debate don't have to submit to a better argument. Then what is it? Just rhetoric? Just who looks better? That's retarded. And we know we look better than those guys. So we win that side of the debate too. So I mean, that's why it forces us to have to admit we're wrong, and it's just human pride doesn't want to admit it's ever wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was a funny little shit show. And before that, we had a nice show. We talked about this. What was it titled? Something. The Alchemy of the Soy Boy. Where we talked a little bit about culture creation, the roots of the modern culture creation, zeitgeist, and where this stuff's coming from. So I titled the chat today, "Social Engineering of the Millennial." The social engineering of the millennial. It's not a New York accent. It's yeah. This is going to be the new word, social engineering.
Well, I have to give you credit, dude, because since we've been doing some shows, you kind of have refocused my attention on the whole vegan thing, because I guess I just didn't really pay attention to that niche of YouTube and how big it was getting.
Yeah. And
you were talking about how this is going to be the big push. This is what they're going to go for. And then we see the Economist is putting this out, the Guardian's putting it out. Within a few days after your streams, you're seeing this all over mainstream media. So it just kind of reinforces the fact that this is not just YouTube discussions and debates. This is really a top-down plan, and they are pushing it with every bit of energy they have.
Absolutely. It's funny because you'll see the same exact article published on several mainstream outlets within 24 hours, and that's regularly happening now every single week. This week was Beyonce and Jay-Z promoting a vegan diet, and Beyonce's
Are you serious?
I'm serious, dude. Beyonce and Jay-Z, but it's like, it's over the top. And their celebrity trainer is putting out a new book, and it was I think it was like Forbes magazine. There was like 5 different articles. We talked about this yesterday on the stream. Same day, W magazine, Forbes, CNN, all saying, Beyonce and Jay-Z, with almost the same headline. It's a press release, right? It's not even real journalism at all.
Yeah, I want to comment too on a lot of people who've messaged me and made comments whenever we talked about this in various social media outlets, which is the idea that a lot of church fathers talked about fasting, and a lot of church fathers talked about doing this kind of a diet, and a lot of monks and people okay, first of all, that's the ancient world when they didn't know as much about health as we know today. So that is true. There is some truth to the fact that we know a lot more about health than people did back then. Secondly, there's nothing in my view that says that we have to at all times only eat meat. Now, I know that people do take that view. I'm not saying that that's wrong or right. I think that people have to, in a case-by-case basis, make decisions on their situation, their health needs. And in fact, even Orthodoxy does that as well. I mean, the bishops oftentimes give a lot of dispensations for health issues, right? So if a person has diabetes, something like that, they're not bound to the fasting. So also, it's important to keep in mind that there was not a massive plan 1,500 years ago, 1,800 years ago, to push this from a top-down scam system approach to ruining everybody's fertility. Now, it was true that elites back at the time of Plato, they knew about how to control men with diets. But you also have to keep in mind that meat was a much more of a rarity. Meat was something that was more expensive. It was something that wealthy people would eat, back at that time.
Right.
And it's a lot more prevalent nowadays. So we have to we have to balance tradition with the reality of the present day. For example, I don't mean to ramble, but
Dude, no, this is great because it's right in line with what I would have had a
because this is
personal
what
conversation.
people will say. Oh, but what about fasting? What about this and that? There's nothing wrong with fasting, but you also have to keep in mind that we have to deal with the realities of the situation in our day. There wasn't genetic modification 1,300 years ago I mean, there might have been crossbreeding, but there wasn't this crazy Monsanto Bayer situation, in the year 300.
Right, food wasn't weaponized, right? It's like the wheat, the corn, and the soy. It's like these options that we have. I mean, I think the issue, you mentioned all meat diets, right? Which is something really popular nowadays. We talk about this a lot on my channel too. I don't believe everybody should do an all meat diet. I end up eating a mostly meat diet for various reasons. I think there's a lot of plants I could handle. I just, I don't feel as well when I don't eat meat. So personally, it's something that I've gravitated towards, but it is always something that, you come up upon, December, right? And in Eastern Orthodoxy, you have a month of fasting right now. So as somebody who's really interested in Orthodoxy right now, I've read a lot of books, actually many of them on from your reading list, Jay, and I want to thank you and even some of the people in the chat here who've kind of led me towards, accepting the principles of Eastern Orthodoxy. And yeah, so really appreciate that. But the month of fasting, it's very interesting because it is, it's abstinence from meats and stuff like that. And this could be very difficult for some people who are dealing with health issues. And I think it's interesting that you bring up, the differences in the world, the differences in what's going on geopolitically with food, and, the meaning of certain foods in the cultural context that we have now having changed. I think that is pretty important.
I can tell you right away that across the board in the Orthodox Church, people that have health issues, they would not be required to keep the fast in the same way. So typically the idea might be we'll fast from something else, right?
Yeah.
But generally it's on a case by case basis, but you're never going to be required to do something that's against your own health. So anyway, these are situations that we can't be legalistic about. There's prohibitions like about going to the theater in the ancient canons, okay? The theater in the time of the Roman Empire included worship of the gods.
Right, sacrifice.
Yeah, so that doesn't apply to going to see a play or going to see, a movie, unless the movie is, exceptionally degenerate or something. Yeah. So it's the principle of the thing. We're not slaves to traditions and laws. They have to apply to the modern day. Yeah. And it's like Jesus says about the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, right? So the purpose of the law is man's good, not being a slave to a bunch of legalistic commands. So it's not really about that. And none of the people, by the way, who have objected to us talking about this stuff have any awareness of social engineering, of how this is being promoted from the top down, of what Richard Branson's involved in, what Bill Gates involved in. They don't know any of that stuff, but they want to moralize on this kind of stuff. And I think it's
if you're getting pushback from the non-secular world, I think there's even scripture one could point to. I think it was in Timothy, where it talks about, the forbiddance of certain foods that are made by God for man. And, in the latter times, these doctrines will be spreading. So I think this most definitely ties into that. And it's, it's kind of undeniable to anybody who is familiar with Scripture that, forcing veganism is completely not scriptural, in any...
Exactly.
And that's, Seventh-day Adventists, the entire thing is based on that. That's actually who's behind a lot of the push for veganism and the plant-based diet is Seventh-day Adventist studies are used to justify this.
I used to argue with the Seventh-day Adventists a long time ago about this issue before veganism was like a popular thing. But they were always talking about it. And, I point out that Paul says that that's demonic. He says that trying to forbid people to eat certain things that God has given is demonic, in the same way that the forbidding of marriage. So what you'll see here is that the forbidding of the foods and the forbidding of marriage is also a big part of the globalist plan, because it's all about destroying your health, destroying your ability to reproduce, your progeny. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks a lot for touching on that. That's actually something that, I titled it The Social Engineering of the Millennial, kind of a funny title, but it's always nice to ground the conversations in, Jay and I both coming from more Eastern Orthodox Christian perspective. That's kind of where we're coming from, where I'm coming from when I speak out against things like the promoting of drinking blood and human blood and cannibalism, right? Because we've got a lot of people, maybe in the chat right now, and they come into my chat almost every time, start talking about how, oh, why do you say drinking blood is bad? And, even if you're not going to adhere, even if you don't adhere to the same presuppositions as we do concerning reality as Jay and I might, like, is this really something you people want to spread in your culture? Vampirism, and you want kids running around the neighborhoods draining cats of their live blood and adrenalizing fucking animals and drinking their blood?
So is this because of the carnivore type of diet?
No, no. There were some people. There's a guy in 2012 who came out with a book, Vonderplanets, and I think he kind of opened the floodgates with that. He recommended drinking blood. And there are a few people who are against veganism, very anti. Like, there's a lot of former vegans get into it, right? So, you're a vegan and you've got this thing, and then you leave it, and then so that
go to the opposite extreme.
Absolutely. So I think what we're seeing here is a lot of that, and there's a lot of people like in Western society, dude. As a millennial, we grew up with. What was our moral compass? Like, we grew up with heavy metal and rap music and television telling us what's good and what's cool, and shit. Even Disney's totally satanic. So yeah, I think there's no real belief in morality among my generation, among millennials, for the most part. So it's I think that's probably where it comes from. People don't have a basis in morality. They don't believe in morality, and it just comes, everything is moral because we can.
Is it associated with? Because I've seen it promoted like in certain, like Dawkins says, oh, maybe we can figure out a way to eat people or crap like that. And I've seen like certain occultists, and I remember
like the first time you had, it's more like edgelords on the internet.
Yeah,
just like, yeah, dude.
But is it associated with like neo-pagans too, or any of them into that?
For sure. It's associated with the same presuppositions about nature. It's not natural. It's natural to do this or that. It's natural. It's without really defining what's the difference between natural and man-made. This is what we see a lot of on the internet now in the neo-pagan movement. So maybe this is an interesting thing to talk about concerning the millennials, is the whole neo-pagan thing. Have you seen a lot of this lately too?
That I have seen, because it's essentially being promoted online. I think that the establishment is perfectly okay with neo-paganism as an alternative form for Western European type people to go, because I think those movements are controlled, and you'll see a lot of the people who go into that realm of things. The rest of their worldview doesn't match up with anything coherent, I don't think. Yeah. So, and I've gone on a lot of these shows. I've gone on a lot of shows with the people who've gone in the direction of paganism, neo-paganism now. And I hope that we could have debates about that topic, but I don't think a lot of these people really want to have debates. They just think Christianity is, cuckianity or whatever. But I don't think they're going to find anything better in the pagan and neo-pagan cults. And if it was the CIA and the Western establishment that has been promoting that stuff too. Look at let's take one example. Before all the alt-right came about, the Nicholas Shrek, not Shrek the cartoon guy, but he was married to, I think he was Zena LaVey's husband or something. He's one of the Church of Satan guys, basically. So you can find clips of him on, I don't know, like Donahue or some shit in the 80s. And everything he says in his interview is what the alt-right says today. And what he talks about promoting is the rebirth of paganism, the rebirth of European paganism, Nordic paganism coming back, Odinism. This is back in the 80s, okay? So there's a satanic element to that side of things. It's just as much Antichrist, just as much Nietzschean Antichrist, Crowleyan Antichrist, as is the other opposite of the social justice, nature worship. They all meet, basically. The social justice, nature worship, soy boy, vegan over here, in a weird way, it comes all the way back around with the far right, alt-right, satanic, European, neo-pagan, Odinist guy. They meet at the opposite ends of the spectrum, precisely because it falls back into just worshiping nature, cutting down the population. They agree on population control. They agree on worshiping nature. They agree on thinking that they're the elite when they're not. Both of those schemes fall back on one another.
Yeah, but the definition of nature is always so vague too, because then they'll delineate between what is natural and what is man-made, right? So they'll talk about, oh, these are just man-made beliefs, and it's like all these religions are man-made religions, but apparently accept their belief and their religion.
Well, you know,
they're making
what do they both embrace? Culture of death. They'll both embrace the idea that death is natural, death is good, since it's quote part of nature, like you're talking about. There's nothing wrong with man taking hold of death and engineering it. This is what Russell says. This is what H.G. Wells says. It's what Jacques Attali says. It's what's the other Ghost in the Machine? Arthur Kessler. He says this. He says, man. He says the high priest of the scientific community have a duty to step up and engineer death and control it in order to kind of give a speed, like a bump to evolution. So it's this. This is what gets you Alfred Kinsey molesting a bunch of kids, Peter Singer that you talked about a few shows back. That's what that worldview gives you. So you're absolutely right. And I want to stress too that when you see people like Nicholas Schreck, who was back in the 80s promoting alt-right, then those groups are also funded by the CIA and NGOs just as much as these bigger left type groups. There's no difference because they all, again, the basic foundations end up being the same.
Yeah, and it's funny, and you see it kind of permeating out through society and through these internet cultures, and you see things cycle in and out a lot. You know, it's veganism getting a big push right now, but then it seems like a lot of the people that want to push against it, you know, they see what's wrong with veganism. What do you fall back on? What platform can you put your weight on to push against any of these worldviews or any of these degenerate things? I think people are remiss because they reject, the truth, and they want to just kind of stand on something that's nonsensical, and they end up spouting basically New Age crap, right? So you mentioned like neo-paganism being kind of supported by the establishment. I think a lot of these people say, no, that's bullshit. The establishment doesn't push that, but I think you're totally right in line. Like it's changing images of man. That's what it's all about. You know, I mean, it's what's his name, Joseph Campbell. The establishment has been promoting Blavatsky and Alice Bailey. So yeah, I mean, that's neo-pagan revival stuff, and the same shit that a lot of these people are promoting is exactly that.
Yeah, primitivism, return to primitivism, archaeofuturism. You could look at some of the people who are part of the traditionalist camp, like Miguel Serrano or Savitri Devi. They're kind of inspirations to the alt-right. They were what were called esoteric Hitlerists, and they actually believed that Hitler was like another avatar of the Buddha or the Christ or Muhammad or whatever. He's just another one of these avatars. And so all I'm saying is that neither alt-right in its what's sometimes been called in its antichrist manifestations, nor the left in its social justice warrior, they're both demonic and they're both evil. And they both, again, fall back on a culture of death. They both rely on a phony elitism, like, oh, I'm elite because I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube about paganism. Now suddenly today I accept Odin and that makes me special. Yeah. And just because, some group's trying to get you banned because you're into Odinism and you talk about white rights or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're against the system. It just means that your niche is fighting another niche within the system.
In these phony dialectics.
A good example would be Prince Bernhard, who was in the SS. He's one of the guys that founded Bilderberg. And he founded that with a bunch of the other elitists. And now, does that mean that Bilderberg is anti-establishment, right? Because Prince Charles, who went into help founding the World Wildlife Foundation, which is all about promoting mass death, depopulation, right? So are they the good guys because they liked Hitler and they liked depopulation just because they're the real proto-alt-right, right? So, and I'm not just here to bash on alt-right. I'm just making the point that it doesn't matter whether it's the Nietzschean, let's set up a pagan empire, or whether it's the David Rockefeller globalist guy over here on the left. They all converge on the same points, again, of, as we saw in the globalist book series I did. What do they all believe? They all believe in some form of global empire that is based around elitism, phony elitism. They all believe in a culture of death where death is promoted, dysgenics is promoted, Monsanto type crap, sterilization, mass death, what does Prince Philip say? I wish I could come back as a virus to kill off most of humanity.
No,
right?
dude, Snopes says that's not real. It's okay. And
Even though in the video he says it,
yeah,
like
but Snopes,
more
bro.
than once
Come on,
in
dude.
the video.
I Googled it, man. The top results on Google. This is one of the things about millennials, right? It's like we've been, even though, I'm a millennial and I went to university or whatever. So I even knew, and we even talked about this in the university, how you can't trust just the top results, and you have to understand that Wikipedia is not a good resource. But it seems like the millennial generation is so easily controlled by the top results on Google. It's ridiculous.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I'm like 1 year from being millennial. I'm almost on the line there.
You're an honorary millennial. Yeah.
I'm an honorary millennial. So, and I was late to college. So, I remember working as a research assistant in grad school. Like, that was one of the first things you learn. Is that, like, you can't just believe the fact that, like the top of some search result. But I would have people that would come to the library and they would be millennials, and they would be like, how does Google work? And I'd be like, you don't know how to use the search engine? I'm not joking. Like, people, like, every day in the library, I'd have people, like, I'd have to show them how Google works. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not dissing all millennials. There's a lot of smart millennials, but there's also a lot of really dumb ones too.
Yeah. Yeah. What year were you in university and college?
I did a long track of college because I was working full time the whole time I was doing college.
Oh,
so
you're not a millennial then.
Because I was working.
You're working, man. You're not a millennial. Your honorary millennial status has been revoked. No.
I was doing the grad work from like 2010 to 12, 13.
Oh, man. Yeah. I was just getting out in 2009, and it was starting to get a little crazy. Like, the Occupy movement started on my campus.
I remember that.
Because I was in Santa Cruz, and it started in Berkeley and Santa Cruz kind of simultaneously. And it was students occupying the staff building, saying, "We want free education, man. We want free stuff."
If you look to, we talked before about Tim Leary. Tim Leary, Terrence McKenna. Those are examples of some of the left hippie type guys that at times their stuff will break through over to the neo-pagan type stuff.
Yeah.
So you're right. There's a lot of people don't realize this is a real close little, like, it's just a hair's breadth away from New Age, the fathers of the New Age, over to the neo-pagan type stuff. I mean, just take somebody like Crowley, who influenced Terrence McKenna and Tim Leary openly. Crowley is the father of Wicca, as well as a lot of this fake elite modern Satanism and occultism.
Yeah. What about Kenneth Anger? He's somebody who's been.
He's another great example. Yeah,
he's an interesting guy, right? Kenneth Anger. Did you put him in your book at all? You got any?
Yeah, I think he comes up in both of them at some point. I know he does in the first one. I think he comes in the second one too. But yeah, I mean, he's another, again, devotee of Crowley, and he was kind of pushing the avant-garde before anybody else was, and so he was putting out these really weird kind of experimental films. Working with, people that were associated with the Manson cult and all that kind of stuff, working with Roman Polanski.
And like the Process Church.
Process Church, hanging out with Rolling Stones type people. And you've got him making films like Lucifer Rising. So he was ahead of his time in terms of the satanic push in Hollywood. And we're seeing that now with like the new version of Sabrina. Like, I remember back when it was that Nickelodeon chick, who was like Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh, yeah, it was all light and happy.
It was fairly innocuous, and now, like, the new one is like just straight up like, here is how you, do witchcraft. Here's how you do all this kind of ritual stuff. It was pretty hardcore. Like, I just looked at the first episode of the new Sabrina. So
yeah, I saw one still shot from the first episode, and it was Baphomet Temple. It was like really dark.
I mean, it's like just way more hardcore than it was, back when it was what's her face.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s.
Yeah, I was talking about some of these shows. We had Sabrina the Teenage Witch. We had Captain Planet too. I mean,
yeah, Captain Planet's a total propaganda. Dude,
that was like the worst one. And it was like these 5 kids, and each is a different race. They all get rings, and they put them together, and then like gray-skinned, NPC-skinned green-skinned Captain Planet, or maybe it was green skin with like blue hair, and he flies, and he comes and he saves the world from the evil polluters. And it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and Fern Gully came out around the same time. I remember when I was a kid, Captain Planet would come on. I remember Fern Gully came out, and Fern Gully is about evil oil companies basically destroying Mother Earth in this valley of like a bunch of gay critters in the valley or whatever.
Yeah.
And evil oil companies. The villain is actually oil, which is retarded because oil actually comes out of the earth. Like it's not
So
some
evil.
toxic thing. It's not
The
evil.
blood
and
of the
toxic.
earth, Jay.
It's the blood of the earth.
It's the blood of Gaia. You're burning the blood of Gaia.
Gaia's black goo blood. And then you think about modern movies like Avatar. Avatar is the same type of propaganda because Avatar is literally Fern Gully remade. It's the exact same plot as Fern Gully. And then, if I recall, James Cameron is a radical, big-time vegan proponent. I think that's right.
Yes, you're absolutely right. James Cameron directed a film, and if you get into any debates with vegans online, they'll start telling you, "Well, you just wait till Game Changers comes out." He directed this like huge $1 million film, and I think it's still waiting to be released. And it's just talking to vegan athletes. And what's crazy is a lot of these people who he talked to have already switched away from veganism because they got so fucked up by it. So these like top performing athletes, a lot of them, they're not vegan anymore. But the film's not even out yet. Yeah, James Cameron. He also made. You mentioned Avatar. I always thought that was like Pocahontas, right? It was kind of the Pocahontas story too.
It's Fern Gully, and it's Pocahontas, and it's the Smurfs.
Pocahontas, Fern Gully, Smurfs, 3D Smurf. It's like Smurf sexy vampires, right? Because they're kind of vampires. They have vampire teeth, and like the
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Now, we did a Hollywood Decoded on it. I had to be nice about it, so I had to like try to find the positives in it, but
pretend that it was like a good film.
Yeah, but I'm not a big fan of Avatar.
I thought that was horrible. And you know what? I hate those 3D movies, man. You put those glasses on, and your head starts hurting after about
Gives
5
you a headache,
minutes.
yeah.
Give me a huge headache. I think that's part of the programming. You gotta really rewire your brain while actually watching the film. Well, that was really tied in with transhumanism too, right? I mean, that whole film is all about interfacing with a false reality. And I'm thinking, while I'm watching that film, I remember thinking, how do any of these people know that this place they're in is real? They're probably just out there killing. They could just be in the Amazon, like, killing humans, and they think that they're on some foreign planet.
Well, exactly. Another element to this was the Sam Worthington character. If you remember, they choose him because he's in a wheelchair. So this is like the Wounded Warrior Project. And if you look at what DARPA actually does, the way that they sell their transhumanist stage 1 stuff, beta version of it, super soldier, cyborg type stuff, is that they say, oh, look how much we're helping wounded warriors and the sad veterans who've lost an arm. That's how it's being pushed. And then you look at the actual people behind transhumanism, and they completely hate humanity. They don't give a shit about these soldiers.
Yeah,
they're just guinea pigs, basically.
Yeah, and I mean the whole dialogue is about upgrading humanity, right? Like nature fell short in their worldview.
Yeah,
nature is wrong.
Book, I have a discussion of Avatar and Fern Gully and Alien, and this is a good tie-in because there's a lot of similarities between in Alien the idea of man and the universe being an abortion, which is this kind of Gnostic doctrine. And if you think about it, that's essentially what the point of like the aliens busting out of the gut, in the old Alien series by Ridley Scott is. And Ridley Scott even said, I think he said at times like, well, there's an aspect to this which is about abortion and is humanity an abortion and all this stuff. And and it starts to make sense when you realize that he utilized the artwork of H.R. Giger, who was a big devotee of Crowley. So I put all that in the new book, and the reason it ties into Avatar was just this idea of, again, that man is the problem, man is the disease, man is what's causing all these problems, and together we have to unite and prepare for the coming body mod cyborg revolution that's coming. Once we start getting the microchips implanted, and then once we start getting eye patches that like fashionable eye patches that can see through walls and tell us everything about. I mean, they tried that with Google Glasses, but whatever they bring out is going to be sold as a right a human right. And that's what Timothy Leary said. He said, I had more success selling people on blowing their minds on LSD by telling them that their rights were being suppressed than anything else. So all they have to do is couch it in the next phase of civil liberties, and everybody, all the dum-dums, all the NPC zombies are going to jump on board, because that's the easiest way to manipulate people. And that's what the plot of Blade Runner 2049 is about, is the Guyan Rosling character. He thinks that he's an NPC, and then, what does he find out? He's part of the bot revolution, and so he gives his life for the revolutionary cause of the replicants versus the old broken humans.
Yeah, well, I'm really interested in also the character that Jared Leto plays in that film. He was a really fascinating example, right? Because as you go up higher in the human hierarchy, in the Blade Runner 2049 universe, the humans are more inhuman than the bots, than the robots. And there was even a moment in the film where I came up with a theory. Well, maybe the bots and the actual robots are really human. Maybe they're actually human, being born like biologically, and they're just ritualistically programming everybody to dehumanize them, and that they're because what's his face? I mean, there's probably reasons in the film that this wouldn't work. This theory might not work, but I think it's an interesting thing to think about now. When what's his face, Leto, doesn't Jared Leto own the Laurel Canyon house where the military base was?
Exactly. Yeah, he bought the. I'm not sure if he still does, but at least he did for a long time. I think he still owns the Lookout Mountain Studio is his house, and he converted it over into a house.
I'm trying to pull up a screenshot of Leto's character, but he's so fascinating. In one scene, he actually sacrifices one of his replicants. She drops out of the sky, out of the top of the building, out of some like tube thing, and
tube of goo, yeah.
And he cuts her womb, and he does it in a very ritualistic way. And the way that he's talking, it's a really strange scene that almost makes sense if you think from the perspective that I was just proposing, that maybe the replicants were just real humans, and they're so dehumanized, and the world was so fallen and so twisted and so in this transhumanist madness that people would believe it.
That's an interesting analysis. I think that it's hard to know exactly where they were taking the second one. I didn't think it was terrible, but I didn't think it was amazing. I thought it was a decent attempt at a sequel, but in that scene that you're talking about, I just watched that. I got to that part right before we did the show, and what he says there is that he says that I am going to create a new branch of angels. Like, I'm going to create a new series of angels, and he's like, we're going to storm heaven and retake Eden. And that's actually a direct quote from Crowley.
Yes.
Crowley said that in the future that he would like to see the storming of heaven, the retaking of Eden. And you can find parallels between Crowleyanism and transhumanism as well. I think at root it is Crowleyan. But
who wrote the book Storming Heaven? Wasn't that Leary? Wasn't that Leary's book Storming Heaven? Or was that a different?
There's a guy called Jay Stevens who did an analysis of the history of LSD and culture.
Okay, that's it.
Who's not really, he's just like a mainline academic. It's a pretty good book though, but he said that he called it Storming Heaven.
Yeah, you're right.
But he probably did name it after Leary, and Leary would have got it from Crowley, because he was a huge devotee. But yeah, that is essentially what the Jared Leto character is saying. He's like I'm going to create a new slave race. That's what he says. He says we need a slave race of people who do what I fucking say, and then we'll storm heaven, and we'll get rid of all of these broke ass humans that are the old models that can't be fixed.
Yeah, and he's upgrading now. I started watching it again yesterday too. I didn't get through the whole film either. I'm scrolling through it right now, looking for some interesting screenshots. I think the beginning of the movie is really interesting as far as like the whole smart city, the millennials paradise, the smart city. So you watched it recently too, right? So you're pretty fresh on exactly what it opens up, showing just these massive like solar array panel things in the middle of California, and it's this overhead shot.
Yeah.
And then it shows them harvesting bugs. A man harvesting protein. He's on a protein farm, and people are now
Exactly.
eating bugs because they can't have cows, which is really funny. Because I mean,
Yeah, this is ask yourself and vegan gains is this is their version of the future. Like we're looking at
their
this is what they
utopia.
see. Yeah, because we haven't listened to them and the Rockefeller Foundation. What we have is giant mass pollution everywhere. We can't see the sun anymore, right? That's why they're having to grow this stuff in this weird way. Is because the sun's been blocked out from all of the pollution because of the overcrowded LA megacity, which ironic because it's the elite who want the megacities. It's the elite who want to spray the skies, according to Cass Sunstein, to blot out the sun. Wall Street Journal just put an article out last week saying scientists are just now going to experiment with blocking out the sun because of global warming. But the movie says, oh, no. It's because of overpopulation and pollution that the sun's been, I mean, we're supposed to think that the sun's been blotted out. And so, yes, we're having to basically have giant bug farms to feed everybody and give them their protein, because everything is synthetic. It's hard to tell the difference between what's real and fake in this future. So if you were to eat something synthetic like meat, I guess it doesn't give you nutrition. I don't know. Or eating meat's forbidden probably in this.
I would guess it's all rationed, right? Because the only time we see him eating, I think, is when he goes home, right? He goes home after this little journey, and he meets his girlfriend. And who's his girlfriend in this movie?
Yeah, his synthetic virtual CGI girlfriend.
yeah. His chick is a oops. Sorry, we're hearing some audio from Blade Runner right now. I don't want to get
his sim girlfriend.
Yeah, his sim girlfriend. She is an AI program that is in his home, and she's basically Alexa, who projects from a monitor.
Good point.
Yeah, and,
Right.
and he gets a gift, right? Like, so he can bring her portable.
He gets downloadable content to make his girlfriend be able to leave his shithole coffin apartment.
Which is literally that's where most of these vegans who are out there propagandizing you guys into. That's where these people already live. They live in coffin apartments in LA and Toronto. So I'm trying to find a shot of his apartment. He comes into his apartment, he jumps in the shower, and it gives him like 10 seconds of shower water. And that's all he gets.
His ration. Yeah.
But when you look at Jared Leto's character, he's like in this, I don't know.
Palace.
He's in a palace, right? I don't know. I'm not sure if it was a pyramid. Back in the other film, it was in a pyramid.
It was a giant pyramid, yeah.
His room that he's in is filled with water.
That's a good point.
It's infinite water around him. It's water reflecting all the and I think that's kind of interesting because when you look at you see the 5G rollout now, right? So one of the things that actually will weaken electromagnetic frequencies and radiation is going to be water. So trees will interfere with it. Rain, water does interfere with the with EMF. So I think it's an interesting detail that they put in there of. There's probably different factions in this hypothetical future that Blade Runner exists in, which isn't that far off from where we're at right now. But there's probably other factions and corporations that are battling it out for power. And, so surrounding the head of the corporation's lair with water would perhaps protect him from, attack from other weapon systems around. I think that's kind of a funny
That is an interesting point. And that comes up in Signs, too. If you remember, the only thing that defeats the demonic entities is water. Just side note there, because we just talked about that on another podcast the other night. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There are some interesting symbolic elements to this. I think that that tree at the beginning where he finds the body of the remains of Rachel. This is where we're led into the idea of it being a miraculous birth, because she's a replicant too at the end of the first Blade Runner. And so it's impossible that she can give birth. Oh, but it's a miraculous birth. She's somehow able to.
That's
so
why my theory, it's like, well, maybe they're just human and it's all bullshit. They're just lying.
Well, in the first one, if we want to take seriously the first one, which is obviously a far superior film, Ridley Scott did say that Deckard is a replicant, because there is the scene where his eyes light up red. So I think Philip K. Dick is kind of, since it's based on his work. By the way, did you know part of the reason Philip K. Dick was able to put so much of this into his fiction is because he was actually hanging out with the Silicon Valley people back in the 60s and 70s. So he actually knew where they were going to take all this stuff back then. So he wasn't like magically, talking to aliens. He was just hanging out with these Silicon Valley type people, Pentagon types.
Yeah.
So he knew what was coming. So that's when you're watching Blade Runner, you're getting Philip K. Dick, you're getting the sort of predictive programming from, guys hanging out at the Pentagon. And I think 2049 is just another update version of that. But yeah, it's a replacement version of a new mythos, the new Christ mythos, the Moses mythos, miraculous birth mythos in the Bible in Genesis when, her name is Rachel. And at one point, Wallace, the Leto character, even refers to the biblical story of Rachel and Leah. Mm-hmm. And Rachel's the one that's barren, and God miraculously opens her womb in the story of Jacob and Rachel and Leah. Thus, we're supposed to, again, think that the reference to Rachel, the Mary Sean Young character giving birth, is a miraculous event, and this is the bot revolution that's gonna stop, the what I mean. It doesn't really even make sense like why there would be a revolution, because Jared Leto just represents, like I was talking about earlier, he represents like the alt-right version of the revolution, the Crowleyan version of it, the Nietzschean version of it.
Yeah, he represents like the millennial. He's the quintessential millennial, right? Because in 2049 he'll be an adult, he'll have come to fruition, and he's totally modified. Even his eyes are, whatever is in his eyes. They do a good job. I think they did a great job with his character of making it vague. And I like you not knowing what, he's got this thing in his neck, and it's just like a little light. So you don't even know what level of humanity is left in this thing that's supposedly a man.
Right.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate millennial. He would have been growing up in my generation, and been, a grown man at that time. And his whole thing is, go ahead.
He's basically the Monsanto Bayer new human factory. That's what he's up to. It's just a cloning bot replicant factory. He kind of represents a version of God the Father, like a Gnostic evil version of God the Father in a way, because he's he wants to be the father of the new humanity that's going to replace the human race. But what I'm saying is that his opposition, or who we're supposed to think is his opposition, is Ryan Gosling and the revolutionaries who meet underground, and like they're gonna start the revolution. And so it's like Antifa versus Crowley, and like Crowley and Antifa are on the same team.
It's pretty funny, right? I feel like they put that revolution thing in there just because of kind of it in line with the spirit of the age kind of thing. Everyone wants the fake revolution, and you got the
and he's patriarchal too. Don't forget, like he has a woman in subjection to him. He has the hot secretary. Yeah. He cuts open the wombs and then tosses them away. He doesn't need them. But the revolutionaries, they're led by women. They've got a bunch of women everywhere.
It's all feminist, and they have like their eyes popped out, so they got the one eye
versus the evil patriarch.
Yeah.
Oh, but don't forget too, there was child trafficking. That was also a reference. There's also a reference to that, because
and child programming, right? Because what's that guy doing with all these little rat kids?
It's kids, exactly.
He's got this whole underground thing of all these little thieves, and it's kind of like in Game of Thrones. You have the Meister has like his army of little kids that do his bidding. This guy's got that going on under there. And also Ryan Gosling's character has these, supposedly, I guess we learned that they're implanted somehow or something. Is that
implanted memory.
They were implanted, but he has memories of being down there in that underground situation, being programmed like these kids. So it's very weird. I feel like there's certain things they put in there. It's like, all right, we'll never tie up this loose end, and if we keep this loose, it gives this great mystique to the whole thing. And some of them were corny, but some of it worked. I think the transhumanism angle was that they handled it pretty well. It was relatively realistic, especially Jared Leto's character being so given over, so just openly satanic, and spilling blood at times, sacrificing his own little creations. And
it is. He says we make angels at the service of civilization. I'm going to create a new nine, which is basically a new hierarchy of angels that are going to take over. He says there's not going to be any imperfections or falls anymore. He says we'll own the stars, we'll storm heaven, retake Eden. So he definitely has that role, and he's evil patriarchal raper man, right? That's what his character's supposed to be. He wants slavery, and then Ryan Gosling believes in equality, and they're going to be led by the miraculous, not man. It's not a new Jesus or male that's born miraculously. It's a new woman who's born miraculously. Who's gonna lead the Gaia revolution.
Yeah, it's funny. And then she, I haven't even got to the end of the film again, so I forget exactly how they flesh it out. But she just is kind of a prisoner in this digital cage her whole life, right? The
Yeah,
supposed
she
messiah.
has the ability to. She's very creative, so she kind of represents the power of the imagination and creativity, and that's supposedly been lost, I guess. So they're harvesting her creativity because she's superior to everybody because of her feminine creative principle, and she can tap directly into the ether or whatever and create this stuff.
She's like
Um,
dialed into
so,
Gaia.
yeah, so but and they're parasitically sapping on her for her ideas and whatnot, and she's the miraculous birth. We learned that she was the one that Rachel gave birth to.
Yeah, I think the first half of the film is better before they start trying to flesh out the silly story. The universe that they revealed in it was very telling. Um,
Well, that obsession with the synthetic is very prophetic. The multicultural hellhole is very prophetic. That was in the first one too. I agree with you. I like the character that Leto is. It's just that the mythology of it in the end, I think, ended up being kind of a typical kind of social justice type mythology.
yeah, it was kind of weak, but I mean, definitely in line with the original's theme, like the Gnostic thing. I mean, you had
Hmm.
Roy Batty choking his dad to death or his creator to
Yeah,
death in that
yeah.
film, in the first one, which was very Gnostic and kind of satanic. And
Luciferian, yeah, that's just Satan rebelling against his father. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting how the rebellion theme is it's so strong with the generational divide, right? Like I feel like the millennial generation, we're constantly being thinking it's so trendy to be rebelling, right? Since I guess the boomers maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, engineered revolution is an old trick. I think there's a great quote from Spengler, Oswald Spengler, and he says that there has never been a revolution that wasn't at the service of some larger monetary interest. And he says, and this fact has never been realized by the revolutionaries themselves. They've always believed that their socialist revolution was at the cause of the greater interests of humanity, and they're never bright enough to actually look into who's funding my socialist revolution, who's funding my uh, atomistic individual revolution. All these revolutions. That's why it's always targeted at the youth, because the youth they haven't lived long enough to realize, how people can be manipulated, how groups can be used,
Yeah.
how people are tools. And so they're very idealistic. And that's why, look at Mao, he focused on his youth revolution because he knew that youth were too ignorant and stupid to realize they were being used.
Yeah, it's kind of lately been using kind of the calling vegans kind of the front line of the Maoist global
That's a
revolution.
great way to put it. They're a great example of this. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's because they're youth and every single ideology that gets pushed right now gets tied up in the vegan ideology. You have the eat meat bad. That's
Mm.
just like the one level of it. But why is eat meat bad? Well, because climate change, global warming, right? Like the climate's changing and the meat is adding to the climate change. And also, people eat meat, of course, and people are bad. We all know babies are bad. So yeah, I kind of see them as the front line of that. I mean, they just readily take on all these ideologies and will use that. They will use any justification and accept any authority that makes them feel like they're a part of this bigger, broad, powerful movement that's going to change the
Hmm.
world.
Yeah, I remember the first time I started realizing that the university system was being used for this was, well, my own experiences, but I remember I had a girlfriend from high school who was a sharp girl, and she went to a pretty prestigious university and started studying. She did law, and then she went back and did genetics.
Hmm.
So very, very smart girl. And this is some years ago. We met up after she had gotten her grad work just to eat dinner and talk and catch up. And I hadn't seen her since high school. And so this is like 5, 6 years after high school, back in the early 2000s. And in the midst of conversation, she starts correcting me about what terms I'm using to speak of other people groups. And I'm like 5 years ago, like we joked around and had fun in high school, freely speaking, but she had she, being very intelligent, she had been completely indoctrinated back in the early 2000s into correcting people in conversations about what terms they are and aren't allowed to use.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I don't submit to your authority. You're not going to tell me what term I can use in a conversation with you. But what I started realizing was that they're really wanting to police speech. And I was kind of naive. I knew a little bit about conspiracy stuff back then, but I started realizing like, man, so she's having professors like telling her what you can and can't say, and you need to go out and correct people, and take this phony moral high ground, and so it gives them a situation where they feel like they can be morally superior to everybody. It really just feeds their pride. And here we are. That was 2003. Here we are 15, 16 years later. And it's gone light years beyond that. It's gone into just total crazy land, mixed up. Like you on the one hand, there's no collective identities like masculine or feminine or gender, but at the same time, that's all that matters is whether I have the gender and the idea that I want. Right? I mean, it's just total madness.
Gender doesn't exist, but you misgendered me, and that's a hate crime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's insane. Where do you think this? I'm looking at kind of the cultural, kind of the spirit of the age, right? Like, it seems to me like a lot of this got instilled into my generation in the public school system. Where
Mm-hmm.
you're trained to kind of. I mean, there was this constant nannying about like what people are saying, what bullying was like this big thing. Whereas like
Yes.
there weren't bullies really at my school. Like you would see some shit, and then someone would get corrected like within the social structure usually. But then there started becoming this really big push about like about bullying and people's feelings and sensitivity. They started sensitivity training everybody in the schools,
Yes.
and I remember. Like the structure is always funny too, right? So when you get in trouble, you get a write-up or you get a referral. You might get on, what's it, timeout when you stay after school. You might come to detention, or you don't get to go to recess, or you go to the principal. But it's like and then it's this training you to be within this weird, vague, bureaucratic system where you don't even know what's okay and what's not okay. And now we have social media, and it's funny because you see the way people act. They're treating social media like it's the schoolyard, right? Like people want to run to Twitter and YouTube and tell on people because they hurt their feelings or they said something that disagrees with them. And I think a big part of this is just training everybody into this nanny state world.
It is, and it's also another way, more deviously speaking, that people who are hip to the game, they're just using it as a means to try to take down other people. Like if somebody's successful in comedy or something like that, somebody's more successful than you, what happens is a lot of the lesser well-known social justice types, they'll band together and they'll report, somebody who's more successful. Oh, you said the bad word in your comedy routine. And they think that they have gotten ahead by taking somebody down. Like, oh, we got his Netflix special canceled. We got his, his show taken off the air because we got him now. Now we can rise. But they're so stupid to realize that that's only going to damage them in the long run because they're going to be policed in the exact same way. And the policing is going to go infinitely crazier than it already is.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I even had one of these social justice vegan people threaten to sue me. Vague,
I saw that.
totally, it was so vague and never got a letter from the guy's lawyer at all. Lawyers. He had multiple lawyers. It was just, still, it's like if YouTube does it, and then we're going to get your YouTube channel taken down.
I got the same law team that OJ got, dog. You better watch out.
Yeah, man. Here's Johnny Cochran coming after me.
Johnny Cochran.
Or wasn't
not even alive.
Robert Kardashian, right? Wasn't that guy involved in the OJ trial? I was man, I remember that
Judge
trial.
Ito, dude, you're going down for sure.
Judge Ito, man, he laid down the law. How funny is it? You have like OJ Simpson's trial in front of the whole world, but like nobody even knows what happened to the Boston Bombers. What happened to that trial, man? It's like, I don't know. I'm not trying to get deplatformed.
We speculated that on a podcast a long time ago. We speculated that the whole OJ thing might have been prepping people for reality TV because it was right before MTV started doing Real World, which is what introduced everybody to reality TV, and we found, I think, some evidence that reality TV was birthed partly in concert with the idea of getting everybody used to everything being filmed and surveilled.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to that.
Well, the show was called Big Brother.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, good point.
And that was the failed one, but then you had, I guess you had Real World and Road Rules or
Road
whatever.
Rules, right.
And those were on since like the 90s, but they got really big and then Jersey Shore, remember Jersey Shore?
Mm-hmm.
That was like, maybe Jersey Shore, that was almost like the transition between reality TV and social media reality TV that you see on YouTube now, right?
It's a good point.
Because
yeah.
Well, one of the guys from Jersey Shore, he's like a ketogenic diet advocate. He calls himself the Keto Guido.
Is that right?
Yeah, one of those guys. Maybe I should have him on the show one time. We'll see. I'll try to get a hold of him.
I want to keep going, but I gotta do the wee again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, go for it. Take a little break. I've got some videos I can pull up. I've been having trouble.
I got a wee real quick.
Cool. Yeah. I'll share. I'll pull down the. All right, let's see what's going on here in the chat. What's happening in the chat? We got people. What's up, guys? Beatbox says peace reflections. Oh man, you guys know what's going on with Nature Boy? Nature Boy's thing is falling apart. So that's another funny thing, right? We're just talking about reality shows, and now we're seeing like the most degenerate, insane reality shows ever manifesting on social media via guys like Nature Boy. So yeah, that's fascinating. Thanks for reminding me of that reflection. What's up, everyone? I remember when I was in second grade in public school, some families got mad at the Pledge of Allegiance because it says one nation under God. LOL says nature's world order. Yeah, we'll change it to one people under nature. Under nature, then all things will be permitted. All right, what's up, everyone? All right, I've got some videos pulled up, but I've been having trouble sharing them with audio going through Skype. Where'd those videos go? Alright, let's talk about this. Alright, so my buddy, Frederick Leroy. I don't know this guy. I don't know if that's his real name. But this is his Twitter. And he's actually Frederick Leroy on Twitter. Oh, not that one. Where'd it go? Browser. There we go. So Frederick Leroy on Twitter has been putting out some really, really interesting threads. This thread here, talking about the meat tax narrative. Now, he's on to some of the same research that I've been looking at, guys. And I've been kind of communicating with him in and out via Twitter. So follow Frederick Leroy on Twitter, and this is a great Twitter thread on the meat tax narrative, talking about the financial interest behind it. You've got Oxford University publishing this study from that guy Marco Springman. That's his first part. Oh, there he goes. He talks about Marco Springman, of course. Now, Marco Springman is connected to, was it Beyond Meat or was it the lab grown meat? I forget, all these connections. It gets so incestuous when you start looking at these relationships. But you're seeing through this EAT and the Lancet, this network of plant-based promoters demonizing low-carb diets, demonizing meat, demonizing fat, and promoting. Jay's back, and promoting plant-based diets really heavily. So check out his Twitter thread, guys. He links a lot of these things really well, and he's starting to see the links to the big NGOs and stuff as well, the connections to the Rockefeller Foundation that you always see running through these pushes for plant-based diets and for lab-grown meat and for more Monsanto-type stuff. You see guys like Bill Clinton, who he got out of the draft due to some help from Winthrop Rockefeller.
How dare you? How dare you?
So yeah,
he's always holding the. How dare you? How dare you, Tristan? How dare you?
Dude, Bill Clinton, what's going on, man?
I have a hard time saying it. That's all I can say.
I love Bill Clinton. He's such a funny voice. He's just such a like.
How dare you? I did not inhale, and I did not have sex with that woman. I did not do anything. How dare you?
Mr. Bill Clinton. So, anyways, guys, check out that Frederick Leroy thread over there on Twitter. That's a really interesting one. Jay's got his coffee now. Re-upping on the coffee. Or is that water?
It's coffee. Is there any we got any haters in the chat?
I'm trying to find some. Our chat's being really tame. I think I've cleaned up house too much.
Cleaned out to me the hate, yeah.
They all out.
If you don't clean them out, they'll try to say crazy shit and get you in trouble.
Yeah, what can you get in trouble with? You can get in trouble for shit people say in your own chat that you don't even approve.
Say that again?
Can you get in trouble for things that people say in your chat? Because I've been kind of lenient lately.
I heard that, but I don't know how true that is. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I try not to let any blatant craziness go through there, but yeah. People are talking about the real world. I think they've gotten
the algorithm now to where it's pretty it pretty much flags anybody that says anything sketchy.
Well, I was just talking about remember Nature Boy we talked about before. Yeah. I don't know if you've been keeping up on the Nature Boy TJ, but Nature Boy's been going.
I let you keep up with Nature Boy for me.
It's such an example.
I get the Nature Boy intelligence report from you.
Yeah, right. So to me, Nature Boy is like he is the example of just like the program so busted ass like millennial, right? Just total self-contradictory schizophrenic ideology, clutching onto these weird new age ideas, creating his own reality show. He is now gone so deep into this craziness. Like, you got people putting up screenshots of Nature Boy telling them in private message that he cured HIV and herpes in a woman that was in his cult, which is about polyamory. And he said she got pregnant and she had a baby. And then Nature Boy had this video of him like at the birth filming the placenta, talking about eating the placenta. It's just so much crazy shit going on with this, but it made me think about, we were talking about Jersey Shore and all these shows before, but now it's like these shows don't really exist anymore. Now we just have YouTube, right? We've got this same thing is happening at a mass scale with these little stars on YouTube, and it made me think of, you recommended this book, and I thought this book was crazy, The Brief History of the Future by Jacques Attali. And I know that you've written about this book and you've done some really good work and analysis. And if you guys want to find, first of all, Jay's new book, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit later, you can find this on his website. There you go, Esoteric Hollywood 2. There's a link in the pinned comment on this video. If you guys click down below, you can get the book. Get it from Jay. Don't get it from Amazon. But yeah, how do you think the ideas of Jacques Attali, how do some of the ideas of Jacques Attali in his book, A Brief History of the Future, tie into this whole social media, millennial, technophilic society that we see spreading now?
Well, it's funny because he's the mentor of Mitterrand and Macron. So all this rioting in France that we've been seeing, anger at Macron, it's actually anger at his handler, Mr. Attali, who is essentially the Kissinger of France. So that's who this guy is. He's the Henry Kissinger of France, right up there with Rothschilds, basically ruling France and putting into governance the stooges like Macron. Mm-hmm. So that's who this guy is, total technocrat. And if I recall, I think he does have a section. He does talk about diet. Like, he talks about where diet's going to be in the near future. It's probably fresh. I read it a year ago. It's probably fresher on your mind, but I do remember him talking about how we're going to move to the smart cities. We're going to have essentially a global brain of everything being connected. The internet and AI is going to run everything. Yep. Everything, education is going to be, basically tailored to you over some TARS bot walking around. Alexa, essentially, he talks about that essentially in your house. He talks about the global government.
Hyper surveillance, right? He talks about the nomadic society, too.
Nomadic society, yep.
I thought that was a really interesting
specifically
part.
In entertainment, yes. He said that there will be live streaming events. He wrote that in 2006, so he was 13 years ahead of his time talking about live streaming. And then he said that what it'll eventually be will be global live streaming, and that way everybody will kind of have like their Hunger Games style where you're like root for your person who's, in the giant global gladiatorial game who's going to, die, or who's got to, I don't know what they're going to do, but it'll be a Hunger Games type scenario is what he talks about. Do you remember if he talks about diet? I can't remember off the top of my head. I think
He talks about rationing of food and like
Oh,
the increasing globalization of all trade, and he mentions GMO and says, there might be some issues, but it's probably not going to stop, and we might need it. I forget exactly what his point is. He was wishy washy on a lot of those details,
yeah.
but he definitely nailed the whole millennials becoming transient, right?
Yep.
Like just transient culture of millennials and traveling and
Rootless and rootless consumerism.
yeah, that's what we see. I mean, even the counterculture figures that you see and these little weak counterculture movements online, they're all rootless millennials traveling around, just living the YouTube celebrity life.
I live in my little tiny van, a tiny house, a tiny van for my tiny micro penis. I'm a millennial.
Dude, you've got. I
I'm
mean,
not
really
joking,
though.
but, I mean, have you seen the tiny movement, right?
Yes, dude. One of the top vegan advocates on YouTube. This like so soyified guy named Mike the vegan, and he's got like these little. He puts like, "I'm Mike the vegan," and he's got like a red beard, and his hair is all curly, and he like Jerry curls it. It's like all like these little. And I swear he puts a bunch of oil in his hair before he makes videos. Like, I'm Mike the vegan, and I'm gonna debunk everything that people say is against veganism today. He makes these videos from his tiny house, dude. He lives in a freaking tiny house in Illinois. I think somewhere in Illinois. And he talks all about how we've got to, decrease our carbon footprint. The best way to do it is a vegan diet. And here I am in my little, 4 square foot house, and it's amazing.
Yeah, there was. I remember when I was I was at an Airbnb when we went to LA a couple months ago to speak out there, and the Airbnb was up in the hills of Topanga Canyon, and it like if you look at the pictures on the Airbnb to get it, it was like angled to where it was all big, and then you get there and it's like actually it was really small, and everything is obviously expensive up there because that's all. Topanga Canyon is where the millionaire hippies live.
Yep.
They're all driving like Mercedes SUVs and going to these big festivals to be hippies for the earth. They've all got like 30, 40, $50 million houses and shit.
Yep.
Anyway, so we're at this Airbnb and it's all squished in and tiny. And I'm like, what is with this? Well, I noticed she had a whole bunch of literature out. And she was a nice woman. I'm not trying to diss her, but she didn't know any better.
She's not watching this, don't worry.
All the literature in her Airbnb was promoting tiny living and how do you need to get away from having a house and owning a car. You need all this just total propaganda. And I'm thinking, well, this is perfect for California. This is perfect for because that's the test bed, and like they lead. That's the tip of the spear, like you said, for the whole SJW type community. But yeah, this whole tiny living movement that ties into it. And what's funny is that Attali talks about austerity, and he says that when the bankers push austerity, one of the reasons for that is they're going to try to make everybody feel faux guilt for their overconsumption. So the globalists have pushed consumption and consumerism, and then they're going to start pushing guilt for you going along with what they said to do. Fake guilt.
You remember when he coins this term transhumans, but it's not in the traditional transhumanism movement sense. I forget exactly how he defines it, but he's got the vanguard of hyperdemocracy, transhumans, and relational enterprises. And he talks about how the new economy, none of it's going to be about products because all products are going to be manufactured by massive corporations and sent around the globe. Right. And the driving force of that, he says, is going to be the nomadic devices. So your freaking iPhones, all of our iPhones, and this tech that's all consolidated, he says, is the driving force behind the consolidation of a global culture.
That was a pretty amazing insight that I haven't really. I mean, I've heard a lot of over the years people saying, "Oh, the smartphone is going to surveil us. It's going to prepare us for AI running us. It's going to control us." But I had not really, until I read Attali talking about it, thought about the fact that how much it contributes to the idea of you putting your identity and your connections and your daily emotional connection, which you would normally get with humans. It's all transferred into this device. And so the device becomes essentially the thing that you read the entire world through. It's like Sandra Bullock in Bird Box. Instead of like she's got a blindfold, this is your blindfold, is this thing. Everything gets interpreted through this thing. And what that does is it makes you a rootless, deracinated individual. That's why Attali is so stressful on the point of individualism, is that you not having a family, you're not having a community, you're not being connected to people. You're just a rootless individual who sees everything and connects everything through this.
Yep. And he talks about the crushing sense of isolation that's going to bring. So it's funny because he knows, I really think he actually knows exactly what's going on. And he's a little tongue-in-cheek at parts, but he talks about, it's more freedom, more freedom, more freedom. He keeps saying this, that the whole linear progression of Western civilization.
Of history is freedom.
It's a joke, right? You read his whole first half of the book is all about increasing freedom, and every single step of the way we get a little more freedom for the individual. And in the end, he ends up admitting, oh yeah, and this all removes all freedom from you ultimately, and you have no freedom and no connection to anybody, and you're totally isolated and alone in this reality. And he admits that. So it's really funny and very schizophrenic and psychotic the way he talks about it. I'm trying to find some of these interesting passages.
All of these globalist guys, the big globalist people in their books, they do this exact same thing. They have a schizophrenic approach. By the end of the book, they admit that, it's just to enslave you and to completely control you. But it's okay because in the long run, this is all for the greater good. Which is never defined, except that we know that it's for the elite.
Well, he has these interesting theories about the waves of the future, right? So he talks about turning the millennials into nomadic, rootless people. But then he starts to talk about the anger of the secular. So the anger of peoples will erupt against the mercantile order and against, above all, the United States, which will direct it for another 20 years at least. The secular anger based on rational premises. And this is page 219 in the chapter, the second wave of the future. So he starts talking about this rebellion, kind of like the Borg, or not the Borg, in Blade Runner, the underground, the replicant rebellion or whatever. He talks about this, and this is in 2008. So at the same time, he's talking about setting up these massive AI systems. But then he starts to talk about the anger. He says the anger of believers, right? So you're going to have people in the non-secular world, especially those pesky Christians, he says, are not going to like this.
Yeah, he says that there's a great possibility of a Christian resurgence. He even says it's possible that America could be a dangerous player in this because America could convert to a theocracy, which is, I was not expecting him to say that. That was very bizarre.
He says a lot of countries will probably turn to theocracies eventually.
Yeah.
And then he acts like he never says that. Then he's just like, but it's still inevitable to this whole global, global.
Yeah, because they're going to lose because you can't stop the force of so-called progress. Of course, progress is never defined.
No,
it's always assumed. That's another thing that you'll see in all the Darwinians, except for certain Darwinians who are a little more honest and will admit that, well, actually, progress is just a made-up human category. It's just a way that we read and interpret certain events. There's not actually progress out there. It's just a helpful term. But most of them actually buy into this assumption that whatever's happening is a linear progress upward. There's not really any reason to believe that, though. On what basis is these advances that Jacques Attali sees over the history of Western civilization, why is that progress? Well, because of a greater freedom.
Define freedom.
Why is that? Yeah, why is that progress to have? Maybe it's not. Maybe that's digress.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the whole narrative of modernity. It's just this whole thing of like, we're progressing, we're evolving. The whole Darwinian outlook on society and on humanity, it's so stupid. It's just so linear.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be able to say that, well, look, we have iPhones now, we have refrigerators now, progress. On what basis is having those tech things better? You see, progress assumes a value judgment, right? A basis by which to judge that thing was less progressive. This is better, basically. But what is the standard for this? Well, there's not one. So it's just this vague consensus of, well, we just have the idea in Western civilization, so-called, that we're progressing. We're progressing. It's better. It's better to have maximal, so-called freedom. We don't even know what that freedom is, though.
Freedom.
I mean,
what freedom?
Is it just to be able to buy a plastic PP if I'm a girl and put it on and say, therefore I'm man? Is that what? That's all. That's what. So
Or is
they
it to put your kids in public schools
right
for how many years now? You know, I mean, what is it? It's 18 years, and then they go to the university. And the university, they just get broken up even more, especially if they go to the dorm rooms, right? How silly
Yeah,
is
and
that?
you're paying for what, $150,000 of debt for this university education, right? I mean, that's what maximize. So what they actually mean is weaponize, maximize freedom when it comes to your psychosexual issues, right?
So
and that's to damage you. But in
yeah,
the
so
rest
like
of
the release of
rest
all
the
the
areas of life, you're going to be in debt slavery. You're going to be, in policing of your speech. You're going to be completely controlled in the rest of areas of life.
yeah, but you can
in your-
masturbate in public. It's cool because you can go
in your
jerk off.
cummies, you can have all your cummies.
You can go to you can watch VR porn on your Google Glass while you're walking down the street and jerk off in the near future in the smart cities, and you'll be masturbating in front of everyone while you walk
You
down
could
the
put
street.
your pee-pee inside the tree. You could put your pee-pee inside the carcass. You could
Put your pee-pee in the poo-poo. You want freedom?
maximum freedom.
Yeah, the freedom to put your pee-pee in the poo-poo. It's just like the most childish philosophy.
Yeah, it is.
It's so dumbed down the way they teach it too. You know, it's like they teach it so young. It's like, look at this freedom. Look, we've got Johnny here. Johnny's wearing a wig, and Johnny's a woman today, and he's wearing makeup, and he's gonna dance for you children in the public schools in California to tell you all about the freedoms that we experience. You know, it's just like it's so over the top and it's so dehumanizing. And at the same time, it's like, you know, you're not free to criticize this. You're not free to criticize the cultural revolution that's been happening, that's being forced on us. So how is it freedom? You can't even question it.
Yeah, for a lot of people who live in a lot of areas, they're not free to have normal food. They have to get, garbage food. Like in the South, there's a lot of places where people they don't do farming anymore.
Yeah.
It's all like big corporate farming. A lot of people don't have gardens, so they have to go to these giant corporate outlets to get food. And you have the freedom to choose between, garbage from Kraft or garbage from Hershey's or garbage from whatever. That's your freedom, but you don't have basic access to like healthy food. I mean, that's all over this.
You don't even know how to make food. So we was talking about this yesterday with a Gen Z girl who came on. Her name was Megan. Really cool conversation yesterday about her experience in the university, and I was kind of thinking about this week with my wife. You know, it's like the family has always traditionally been where you learn how to curate your environment, maintain your environment, a healthy worldview, a healthy home, and how to feed yourself, right? But the millennial generation, and especially these generations after that, I guess since the boomers really started, but it's been the opposite of that. The family has been completely destroyed, and we don't even learn how to feed ourselves. We go to the public schools and we eat Arby's and Pizza Hut and I had Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and Arby's every day in high school, or no, junior high. That's what they fed us. Like that was the school lunches in California are literally Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, dude. I'm serious. And they may have changed it, but when I was in 7th, 8th grade, we had Arby's, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and I would get just these little sweet roll things, Hostess, microwaved or something. And then
did you have a milk carton? We had bags of milk. It was like a
cartons.
bag. It was the most dystopian thing you could imagine. A plastic bag of milk.
No, it's natural. It's more like an udder. You get to cut it.
You'd have to puncture it like a high C box with your straw. But I don't know. I'll never forget the bags of milk. And I even at the time I remember thinking, man, this is like a dystopian movie or something. Like you go in this line and you get this tray and this bag of milk, and it's like, am I in prison? It looks like a prison. Like it looks like it's very, it's analogous to like when you see prison guys eating their meals.
Well, I used to, me and my friends in high school, we used to joke about it because my high school that I went to in 9th grade, the floor plan, the architectural plan was literally that of a prison. It was. Wow. And we would always joke about it because it was a new school and it was just built. And it was Martin Luther King Jr. High School. Not a junior high school, but Martin Luther King Jr. High School in Riverside, California. I went to for 1 year. The floor plan was a prison floor plan, and when I was in 7th grade, we had Columbine, right? So then, of course, horrific going to school every day after that, completely traumatized that we're going to be shot up in our schools. And then we had, September 11th. So I thought, well, damn, now the Muslims are going to come shoot me up too in school. So I was like, what the hell? Like, it just felt so frightful in this place. And we had giant cage walls all around this school. And we used to joke about it. We thought it was like edgy and cool and stuff, but like we were right. It was
no, they actually were designed on the basis of like military and prison installations, literally.
Wow,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So that was start realizing these things as a kid, and you see how that whole system is running, and I think I think human beings are really intelligent. Actually, we actually do
They are. Yeah.
We see things, and young children see a lot more than most adults because most adults are just so cluttered up with their, with our bullshit. But I think we have to be programmed really intensely and broken not to be able to see this stuff. Somebody in the chat knows MLK High School in Riverside. That's funny. Yeah, I went there 1 year, and then I moved down to San Diego County where we had open campus, and that was great because I could leave school anytime because it was open campus, so you can go drive off. That was.
Well, if we ever skip nasty lunch, like you said, like we would go to Pizza Hut or Subway.
Yeah.
But equally nasty, like we're skipping the nasty food at school to go to something equally nasty.
I was lucky in San Diego, right? Because I had Mexican food restaurants. There was like a little mom and pop Mexican restaurant where the lady knows your name. She's like, "Hello, Tristan. How's it going today? Are you supposed to be in class?" So,
Hashtag bald man bad. Bald man bad.
Dude, that's gonna be
no bueno.
That's gonna be education pretty soon, right? I mean, all right? So how soon do you think the education system is gonna be more disrupted by what Jacques Attali called the nomadic devices? Because we're already seeing a big rebellion against traditional education among millennials and now Gen Z. But I can see this backfiring in a major way, becoming so much more dependent on technology. Have you kind of looked at any more threads of this angle?
I just remember what he says, that his projection is that by 2050, everybody, or it's either 2050 or 2080, he says everybody will basically interact completely through their personalized Alexa. Remember, did you see that movie Her?
Yeah.
Like that. So the operating system will be personalized to you, and it'll probably be some sexy Scarlett Johansson voice talking to you, like in Blade Runner, like it'll be a personalized, assistant thing, and it will be basically your window to the external world. It's also going to be how you get educated. So your education, your information, your entertainment, it'll all come through that filter to you. And how, but I can't, I mean, it just sounds like a complete nightmare. I can't even think of all the dystopian movies together. I can't think of anyone that really could accurately portray how that would be. But it's hard. It's too hard to say exactly how that'll go down. I mean, I know for sure that I read, I think I put it in the new book. I put the Her analysis in there because of the fact that a few years ago when Her came out, Apple was saying, working with DARPA, saying in the near future, we envision the operating system essentially, basically, Siri will be replaced with a thing that's going to talk to you, not just in this generic Alexa voice, but like it's going to more and more and more adapt itself to you, and you're going to feel like it's your best friend. And so we're literally going to see people falling in love with their operating system. I think Her is where it's going to go.
There was an article. I'm trying to find it. I had it pulled up. I want to share. It was all about the technologies in 2019 that are going to, it said, take over your reality or something like that. It was like a Forbes article. And it was talking about AI, that you talk to and you start interacting with AI. So it seems like 2019 might be the year that starts to get pushed, out. I can't find it. I can't find the article. Sorry, guys. Let's see here. Check out the chat. What's everyone? Someone says Jay's big silver mic is juicy. They like it. They like the mic. What about my mic, guys? We have the same mic. You guys just like Jay's. We have the same mic, and they think that yours is attractive. Look at that. What does that show you? Technology is making people lazy. I don't want to live in cyberpunk. Yeah, so
Tristan has a big black mic.
Oh, Jay, stop it.
I've got a big silver mic.
The AI overlords already exist at somebody. All right, so this is why we're always talking about on this channel and on this stream, like the destruction of.
The last section of my new book is that. The last section of the new book is Hollywood transhumanism.
Nice. I can't wait to get the book.
I stuck a good 50 pages of Hollywood transhumanism in there, and I think the craziest thing about all this, like, because you probably have some people in your chat that doubt, like, dude, in 1927, Fritz Lang made a movie about AI sex bots.
Yep. What was that movie called?
Got Metropolis.
Mm-hmm. And Lady Gaga was heavily, like, her videos were very influenced by the Metropolis aesthetic, you know. So you see the Metropolis is very popular now still among Hollywood elite.
Exactly right. But I mean, it does kind of blow your mind that in the 20s they envisioned, it's almost like a satanic version of a prophecy. Like I was thinking about this morning. Like I don't want to stress this too far. I'm not being super literal, but I was thinking, like, you know, Scripture has prophecies, and I was thinking, well, if Satan wanted to mimic God, which I think he does in many ways, what would be his outlet for prophetic signification of what's to come in the dystopian satanic system future? I was thinking, well, it would be Hollywood, right? I mean, that's Babylon. It's the new Babylon, like Kenneth Anger called it. You know, he talked about it as basically Satan's city. And I was thinking, yeah, so it would be, yeah, you could look at movies almost like satanic prophecies in a way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, well, there's no, you know, people don't go to church. You know, the church has been fragmented and broken up into 1,000 pieces. You have, you know, Protestantism rampant all around the United States, and you've got a lot of, you know, wild evangelical stuff that turns a lot of people off to even the thought of ever entering a church, right? So there's, but where do people worship on the weekends? You know, they go to the movies, they go to the new temple,
and to sports ball, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the theaters, they're actually set up, you know, like in a very kind of like Masonic temple type way. You've got the veil, and they often have pillars on the side of the screen, and
that's a great point.
Yeah, even you know, the Oscars and stuff with the little statue gods that they make with their hands and worship. You know, it's a very I definitely see Hollywood as kind of the religious center of the global order right now. You know, I mean, everybody in the world watches American movies.
Yeah, and you even have like did you see that Dawkins quote? Like Dawkins saying maybe we should beam porn and pornography into all the theocracies to take them down. It's like, dude, you're like 50 years behind. You know, Miles Copeland in his book on the CIA was saying we could do that 50 years ago.
Yeah, explain that. So why is that not a new idea? Beaming pornography at so-called theocracies.
Well, in Miles Copeland's book, he talks about the re-engineering of Egypt and that's not to say that Islamic society was ideal. He's just making the point that when they wanted to put Egypt through phases of revolutions to bring them into the modern world so that they could ultimately get the population down, by the way, he says what they had to do was break up the traditional cultures of any society. He said, so one of the easiest ways to do that is to beam American movies in. He says, we gave Egypt a bunch of James Bond movies, and that promoted promiscuity amongst guys, and then it breaks down the family. He says, so we had to introduce many phases of this. When the U.S. went into Iraq, they did this. They started beaming porn everywhere in Iraq to break down the society. So it's an older strategy of just toxic culture. A lot of this comes out of military. If you know military strategies, you already, like, it's not conspiracy. It doesn't, that's crazy conspiracy talk. Dude, it's just basic military strategies. Yeah. You want to defeat your opponent. You want to weaken their morale. You want to fragment their society. You want to break down the traditional order. It's like common sense for how you would do it. So there's nothing better to break down a people group than to attack the bonds that unite them, namely their sexuality, their masculinity, their femininity, psychosexual drives, the family, the worldview, how they view themselves, how they view the external world, how they view authority, hierarchy. All those things have to be completely re-engineered, and they know how to do it scientifically in phases. That's the scary part.
Right, so gradualism is kind of a big thing, right? You don't just make changes suddenly and abruptly because the creatures will realize it. You do it gradually. So and Hollywood is the perfect vehicle for that.
Yeah, and you can then interject the more radical stuff here and there. Like you can have, for example, one thing I've noticed they do, we talked about this in one of the old podcasts, is that they'll kind of float an idea maybe decades ahead of time. Right. This is what you see with the predictive programming. So maybe a show comes out where the pedo is a good guy. Right. And so one movie pioneers that idea way ahead of time. Everybody attacks it. It's universally seen. Oh, but then as the morals erode 20 years later, you look, this pioneering great cinematic achievement 20 years ago that was derided by all the hateful bigots. We can look back now and see it was a great cult film that really pioneered the rights of the pedo. And then there'll be a movie probably in the next few years of somebody having relations with an animal, and it's going to be a challenge to the norms of the system.
Dude, you had Avatar.
Well, but I mean, it'll be more specific.
Yeah, but I mean, the Avatar, you had interspecies relations there. You're right, through the machines. So I guess that was, he was wearing a computer condom, so it's okay.
Well, that's why all this furry stuff and all this kind of crap, that's just preparing people for all that.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And then also you have like, even in Disney movies, right? You have the hypersexualization of children through Disney films and stuff, but they even kind of sexualize animals that are anthropomorphized too.
Beauty and the Beast.
Oh yeah, forget about it. Yeah, I had full-on bestiality film, and that was one of my favorite films as a kid. I used to listen to my dad used to like the soundtrack of that movie. Gaston.
Is that
I can show you the world?
No, dude, that's
or is that Ariel?
That's Aladdin, bro. Come on.
Was that Aladdin?
Shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, princess. Order. Yep. We had. I mean, that's what we grew up with as millennials, dude. We had Disney movies giving us theology about the world, and it was Lion King, and it was Beauty and the Beast, and I guess later on they had the 3D movies like Toy Story and stuff like that, where kids. Consumer objects become living creatures to be respected and worshipped. So.
Yeah, and now they're all obsessed with Ilsa, and Ilsa is a feminist who doesn't need men. She's not going to be in a relationship. She's independent, and she's a magical girl. So get into witchcraft, be independent. You don't need a man. All this kind of garbage.
Yeah, so she's a strong woman, an independent woman, strong independent woman.
Actually, Stefan Molyneux's, I'm a critic of Stefan Molyneux, but his analysis of Enchanted was really good.
I haven't seen that movie. I haven't watched. There's so few newer movies I've watched. The newer Blade Runner was one of the only most recent films I watched. Have you seen? You haven't watched it yet because I'm sure you would have told me. Wow, dude, thank you so much for recommending this to me. Have you watched Utopia?
Oh, I wrote it down. I wrote the series down.
Dude, Utopia, you gotta watch it. It's so good.
And this was you said it was a BBC series?
No, it was a Channel 4 UK series, and it lasted 2 seasons. And it was a really interesting, it ties in a lot of the themes that you touch on a lot on your website. Geopolitics, there's like some, 70s, there's an episode that's a flashback, and there's these MK Ultra type connections going on there.
Interesting.
It's very well done series. It lasted 2 seasons. It's called Utopia. Highly suggest you look at that one. Next, when you do, you'll have to come on here. We could talk about it because they tie in using the food supply to sterilize everybody.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and binary weapons.
Right.
Manipulating technology, changing CCTV camera footage instantly, digitally, somehow. Lots of interesting, and they're all reading this manuscript, which is a comic book that tells everybody what's going on, and it's like there's this weird. It was well done, pretty well done. It was like a, it's a type of series that you would write,
I'll have to check it out. I get so many recommendations that I always forget, but I will check that out. Thank you for
sure.
telling me.
Everyone wants you to watch their favorite movies and do some esoteric analysis of it. So we got some super chats.
Have you seen The Lion King? Could you do an esoteric analysis of The Lion King? Have you seen Harry Potter? Have you seen Harry Potter?
Have you ever heard of Stanley Kubrick?
Have you seen Star Wars?
What is that? What is Star Wars? So Nick Jones says, "Woohoo! Great way to end the week listening to Primal Legend Jay Dyer." Thanks, Nick Jones. Grap3Leaf says, "Speaking of fasting, could you mention Vegetable Police's 21-day fast? I thought it was so bizarre and unhealthy." Grap3Leaf, thanks. Yeah, I'll talk about that in another stream because that's kind of off topic for what we're talking about now. I will say I also agree it was very bizarre, and I hope he gets well. Who didn't see it coming? David, thanks, dude. You're always throwing super chats without even writing anything. Same with Bob Monk. Thanks a lot. John Titor, the time traveler from Coast to Coast back in the day, says, "Love when you collab with Jay." And then this guy right here says the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, which we talked about that a little bit earlier. The movie Her. Anything else strike you from Her that might be relevant to the millennials? The world, the soyification of millennial, the social engineering of the millennial. I think the whole romantic relationship with technology is the obvious thing there. It's like our generation has been programmed to intercourse with technology both psychologically and emotionally and physically soon, right? Because we have people living in VR porn now. You got like that dude, Joe Rogan's friend Duncan Trussell, he's all into VR and stuff like that. He's also really into the new age stuff. He's like friends with Ramdas, the guy from Timothy Leary's friend. He was a psychologist from Harvard. So I think those are some interesting connections.
Yeah, I didn't put a whole lot into the chapter on Her just because it's kind of clear what it's about. And I give Spike Jonze credit for putting a good message because, spoiler alert, at the end of the film, Joaquin Phoenix realizes that what he was looking for was right there the whole time, and the chick that was after him, chick that's like, he's got some chick throwing her, junk in his face the whole movie, and he's obsessed with this stupid, ethereal operating system that is retarded. The operating system basically breaks up with him.
Spike Jonze. It's funny because Spike Jonze is like a big part of my generation, especially kids who are into skateboarding and stuff. He made all those early skateboarding films, and he was really involved with kind of the mainstream. Not even mainstream. It was counterculture at the time, but now it's more mainstream. But the whole skateboarding culture, and it was another one of those fake rebellious movements of the '90s. But he definitely made a decent film there. I thought Her was okay. It was a little slow.
It was a little slow, but yeah. I'll briefly talk about which books which movies I cover in the book.
Absolutely, man. Let me see the cover. What's up with the cover?
Yeah, so basically, I don't design my covers. The publisher does all that.
It's always funny to see what the publisher thinks is going to be, the hot.
He put. I think that's Kubrick's eye. I'm pretty sure it's Kubrick. Kind of like, I don't think he was literally trying
framing
to do
a shot, probably.
But he was probably looking for like the shot. Like how would the movie camera look? And then we've got Tom Hanks kind of doing a Masonic thing here, and he stuck Tarantino and Betty White.
Dude, Tarantino's freaking creepy. I remember like 10 years ago seeing Tarantino pictures of him like doing some weird stuff with a foot that looked very young. That guy's creepy as shit.
And then he stuck Metropolis, and then he put The Matrix in there. So I didn't put The Matrix in. He put Agent Smith on there. But I didn't put The Matrix in the first book, so I thought, well, it kind of is a pretty important movie for esoteric Hollywood, so it's got to be in there. But this time around, I covered Hollywood mobs, cults, spies, and the occult. So I did Aviator, Godfather trilogy. I talked about Hollywood terror, like Lawrence of Arabia, all the way up through to True Lies. I did the movie Clue, Point Break, V for Vendetta, Dialectics, The Prisoner, Ninth Gate, Twin Peaks, and Season 3, Firewalk with Me in Season 3, Back to the Future, Goonies, Ghostbusters, Poltergeist, Stranger Things, Time Bandits, a section on MK Ultra and LSD with Day of the Dolphin and John C. Lilly and all that stuff. Clockwork Orange, They Live, Lost Boys, American Ultra, The Cell, Neon Demon. And then I have a brief section on geoengineering with Dune, Avengers, Snowpiercer, Alien, and Signs, because those get into terraforming and that kind of stuff. Alien crap, which I try to debunk aliens, by the way. Section 4, Hollywood Transhumanism, covers NGOs and what they promote. And then it does Tron, The Matrix Trilogy, Running Man, Terminator, Her, Ex Machina, Westworld, Cherry 2000, and it ends with Metropolis. So a lot of people are saying that they think it's a better written book. I think so. It's a more mature writing than when I did my first book. But
well, you worked on it for a couple years, right? You spent a couple years writing this book. Didn't you spend a couple years writing it, or like at least the last year?
Yeah.
Nice, man. Congratulations on having it out. I'm stoked. I can't wait to get my copy. I know it'll
come soon.
Yeah. You said you probably sent it out, so it's probably going to be here in a few weeks when my delivery comes. It takes a long time.
New batch is here today, so if you order it today, most of the time within the U.S., you get it within a week. I was out, so the last 20 or so orders have been back ordered, but I should be getting more today.
You get sick of writing about movies after doing a book like this? Gonna take a break off of movie essays for a while?
I did kind of take a break because I haven't written a movie analysis in several months. So I did take a break after the book because I was getting sick of it. And then you get to where you start making a lot of videos and doing live streams. You get used to doing that. So
yeah.
So I'm in the habit now of making videos. I did a video yesterday on that goofy Sandra Bullock movie that just came out, Bird Box. So I put that video up yesterday, and that's worth checking out. I mainly just made fun of it. Like it's a goofy thing, and everybody is talking about this dumb movie, and people are walking around in freaking blindfolds doing the Bird Box challenge and all this retarded. It's so stupid.
The Bird Box challenge?
They're like trying to do. It's like, can you do the Bird Box challenge? What do you got? You got to wear a blindfold and try to do like daily activities, and then let's put this on YouTube. It's so funny. It's really dumb, and the movie is not that good. So I just made fun of it for 10 minutes.
Nice. Rom just threw a super chat. Says, "Awesome job, gentlemen. Thank you for your work." Yeah, you guys. Jay's got a great website, jaysanalysis.com. Right, Jay? Is that the URL?
It is. Thank you. Yeah.
One of the few websites in the world that I am subscribed to, and that I pay for his content. He does a lot of live streams, puts out a lot of information, a lot of not just esoteric analysis and stuff like that, and pop culture analysis. But he goes so deep into a lot of theological stuff that I haven't seen touched on in such a dynamic and helpful way by anybody else out there. Really, it's hard to find.
Well, thanks, dude.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Check out Jay's theological stuff as well, which we got into a little bit in the beginning of the stream. But he always grounds his stuff in a really solid worldview and reality. And I think that that's really lost in a lot of the people analyzing culture these days. And I think we're seeing, we criticized, you see the, the alt-right stuff and neo-pagan stuff and the crazy left stuff. And I think the problem with all of these is that they're not grounded in a worldview.
They're not grounded, exactly.
That will help.
Right.
Like, what's the solution, right? It's like all these people, everybody can see the problems, right? The problems are abundantly clear. So where do we go from there? That's what we need to start discussing as cultures, as communities, as families, as as people of faith. There's a lot of division among all these Protestant churches and stuff. And I think one of the things that I appreciate that Jay brings perspective to is the role of orthodoxy in the Christian the history of Christendom and how important this is to understanding where we're at today.
Yeah, thank you. I try to talk about all that stuff, try to make it all coherent and relevant to one another. So it's not just, one area. All these areas really do tie in together. They're all related. Your health is related to your spiritual health. You know what I mean? Your physical health, the culture that you consume is related to your physical and spiritual health. So it's all related.
Absolutely. No, all these things, there's no isolated niche in any of this content you see on the internet. So I think people have to be really careful about content they do consume, lest it consume you. Someone says, "Eat meat."
By the way, we're also starting to see like different groups are going in clearer, defined directions. Like the people who are going the vegan route, they're being more consistent and supporting total globalism, total culture of death, total degeneracy, Peter Singer type crap. They're being more consistent, and it's becoming more obvious good and evil, I think.
Absolutely, and when people don't have a solid grounding in reality, they can't even believe.
They
They
can't
don't
even
even
tell the
believe.
difference between good and evil.
Yeah, it's what's good, what's evil. It's just, or you see when we criticize the kind of the neo-pagan thread that we see a lot in the comment sections. It's like people talk about, oh, well, that's not natural. This is natural, but how do you determine this? Right? These are the things that we need to explore as a society and as people, as communities.
Yeah, there's not exactly an a priori clear explanation or notion of what natural is to every single person. I mean, what does it mean? I mean, does it mean every single phenomenon that occurs is natural? If so, then anything is good. Death
Yeah.
is good. And in fact, you could even
Rape.
argue that death is more prevalent in nature than life. You could possibly argue. So on that basis, we ought to be just total nihilists and completely embrace death. I mean, that's essentially the sort of evolutionary Luciferian type worldview, which says that death is just as or greater than life. These two principles are in nature. They're dialectically connected, so they're just as necessary as one another. So death is an awesome thing. But what's unique about Christianity, in particular Orthodoxy, is that it sees death as the enemy. It teaches resurrection, and death is not something to be feared. It's actually transformed, St. Athanasius says, into a means by which we can achieve life. And the transhumanist movement is the inverse of that, where they're going to try to say we can overcome death through technology. I think it's a lie. It's a deception.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we're gonna transcend everything through becoming a part of Google. Are you kidding me? We're gonna join Google and Apple and put them into our bodies and become that, and we're gonna free ourselves from all the shackles of reality. Yeah, dude, you got to listen to the Ben Gertzel talk with Joe Rogan. There's some sections of that are pretty interesting. I think it's 2 hours or so. You can watch it on. They talk kind of slow, so you could probably do 1.5 speed. But I think you'd like that talk because it gets into a lot of this transhumanist stuff. But it
We'll listen
amazes
to
me
that.
how ready my generation seems to be to just kind of give up what it is to be human. I mean, especially in the big cities.
Humans are the problem.
All right. All right. So like you see this in a lot of this comes out of L.A., San Francisco, London, and I think a big thing that we're going to see and that we hopefully do see, and something that can kind of push up against this. We use the hashtag Eat Meat Make Families, right? Like we also use hashtag Bald Man Bad because obviously Bald Man Bad and Eat Meat Bad. All the standard NPC sayings that you see from the vegans. They're highly intelligent critiques. But I think, rural life, like living in areas where you're actually connected to the processes of, feeding your family, can be very liberating for a lot of us. So, I mean, part of why I push against the vegan agenda is selfish because I want my children to be able to live the life that we're trying to set up for them here right now, where they are connected to the land, where they, our daughter goes down and does battle with a rooster every morning who she's scared shitless of because he harasses her every day. But, the life that we like to promote is not, this city bound, join the Borg, become a YouTube star and become an Instagram model. I think that's not the answer, guys. I think we have to go not backwards in like a Luddite way, but we need to get connected to the source of our food, go to farmers markets, local community, bolstering that. But yeah, what do you think about that, man? A resurgence of,
Well, I think
of
it's another
rural life.
example. It's another example of the absurdity and contradictions that are present in the postmodern transhuman worldview, the post-human worldview, which is that on the one hand, we're told that nature should be exalted and basically worshipped, the natural world, so to speak. And on the other hand, we're told that it's fallen, it's broken, and it has to be overcome and fixed.
Yeah.
So how is it worshipped, and at the same time we got to transcend it because it's the creation of some blind idiot god, and it needs to be transcended and overcome. So at every point in that worldview, it's nothing but contradiction, right? I mean, we're supposed to worship femininity, we're supposed to worship the goddess, but also those things don't exist. Femininity, the idea of genders don't exist. So it's nothing but constant doublethink, and to me that suggests that not only are they not able to accurately interpret what community should be, they can't accurately interpret what natural, quote unquote, living should be. So yes, I think you are correct. The city, the mega city, the megalopolis has for a long time been itself a means of social engineering. It's a way to get people connected into a giant hive in a false sense of community. Because the irony is that people that live in the megalopolises who think that they're, sophisticated, they're oftentimes completely alienated. People that live in these giant they live in these giant cities and they're miserable. In fact, the sociologists like Emil Durkheim 100 years ago, they wrote papers on how people that lived in giant cities were, I think he called it anomie or something like that. He could just total alienated listlessness. They had no connections to anybody because the only thing they had in common was the products they purchased.
Right, and going back to the critique of the whole, we go back to nature, and nature is this and that. Like, if you can't define where nature ends and man-made begins, then please shut up, because you're just spouting a bunch of nonsense. And
the megalopolis is just as much nature as the Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. How is it not natural for human beings to make technology? It's like, if it's natural for the same people that will be spouting, the revival of primitivism, let's go back to just being nomadic, wandering cannibal tribes. These same people just wander around cities their whole life, talking on iPhones anyways. But they're LARPing, right? So the same people are LARPing, and they live in the biggest cities in the world. But what is natural? Why they'll say, oh well, it's not. It's natural to to sacrifice an animal and drink its adrenalized blood. Every culture has done this. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the same mind state. It's the same mindset and the same philosophy that drives the neo-pagan revival as drives the SJW movement.
Exactly.
There's no difference. It's like Vegan Gains philosophy is the same philosophy as a lot of the people I see in the comment section saying, let's revive Odinism and also let's be vampiric and drink human blood because it's consensual, it's cool, it's all good. Non-aggression principle. If you drink human blood,
and you see this system promoting veganism and cannibalism at the same time. Exactly.
Absolutely, and that's people get confused. Well, why would they promote veganism, cannibalism? Well, veganism isn't the end game. The end game is just total control of all resources and lab-grown meat. They know you can't live off a vegan diet, so it's the wing of the dialectic. The other end is the corporate-controlled lab-grown meat structure. So I think that's what people get confused. It's like, oh, you think the world's going to be all vegan? No, it's going to be mostly plant-based, and you're going to be eating a little bit of meat that comes out of a freaking laboratory and that Bill Gates genetically modified to feed you, because that's sustainable.
Right.
So yeah, I guess
that's a great point. That's a great point.
Now, when you look at the funding of all this, it all comes from the same NGOs too.
Same people.
Yeah.
And the same elites are saying that like those globalist books in Arthur Kessler's Ghost in the Machine, he says, look, human beings practice cannibalism for centuries. It's just as natural as not eating humans.
Yeah.
And then he can go on later to agree with all the other globalists and say, we'll give you a plant-based synthetic meat diet.
Yeah, no, the cannibalism thing, people think I'm crazy when I say that the mainstream media pushes cannibalism, but it's all right in front of their face. Richard Dawkins said it. I know you've retweeted him. Didn't he tweet? Do you know the quote from Richard Dawkins about cannibalism?
Vice magazine has done a whole bunch of things on how cannibalism isn't crazy. Maybe we should rethink it. There have been some of the globalists talk about how maybe we can figure out a way to recycle human meat. All these crazy ideas. A lot of the pop artists talk about cannibalism and eating humans. It's not as bad as you think. It's not taboo.
Yeah, they put it in music videos, right? Didn't Katy Perry make a video about cannibalism?
There's a Katy Perry one talking about it. Now you could say, oh, but she's just joking. It's just joking. But no, but actually they will look at Vice magazine. Vice magazine has put out like 20, maybe not 20, 5, 10 articles about how it's cool, it's great, and all the millennials read Vice, right? So nothing wrong with eating humans. Plenty of tribes do it. What's wrong with it? It's natural. It's primitive. Tribes do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's so many. It's funny because you wouldn't have expected 10 years ago for diet to become a ground for theological argumentation. Like diet is now becoming like one of these things that is bringing morality and the conversation about ethics and
Let's
theology
see.
to
Let's
the
see.
forefront.
Okay. I just Googled cannibalism is good. Here's Gizmodo has an article saying cannibalism is good. Here's SciTech magazine. Is cannibalism really that bad? Medical news. Cannibalism can be bad.
It can be.
Let's see. NPR. Cannibalism is perfectly natural.
That's natural. There you go.
Listen to this. National Geographic. Cannibalism. It is ultimately taboo, but it's very common. Let's see. Is cannibalism wrong? Question. There's another article. This is from debate.org. So we're supposed to debate it now. Wired magazine, debate. Is it wrong to eat people? Vox magazine, which is total social justice warrior. 7 surprising facts about cannibalism. Oh, it's not as bad as you think. Oh, here we go. Live Science magazine. Could eating the old solve our food crises? Told you.
Spoiler, yes. What about babies?
Smithsonian magazine. New study fleshes out the nutritional value of eating humans.
Wow. Right. So I mean, this is the thing. Is it's like a lot of these people they talk about the problems. They talk about, oh, well, it's not natural, or it is natural, or some people might say, well, everything is natural. Anything that you're, if you're like a biological determinist or something, well, if your DNA allows it, whatever your DNA allows, that's natural. So, creating technology, creating an AI god, this is all natural. This is all good. It's kind of it's kind of silly. Right, it's like everything is natural that you can do in the physical world. It's basically saying, like,
well, you can breed 2 different animals that can't have offspring. Does that mean it's natural?
Right.
Well, they would say, yeah, but I mean, you can produce sterile offspring from breeding different species. So just because a species can breed, it doesn't follow that it's therefore helpful or progressive for that species to do so.
It's like when you say something's natural, it means that it doesn't break the so-called laws of physics, right? It's like as long as if physics allows it, it must be morally permissible. I don't know, man. It's going to be crazy to see what happens. Technology really is rebuilding all of civilization right now. I don't know about technology isn't rebuilding it, but through technology, all of civilization is being reworked. And I think these types of conversations about like where we're going with this, what we really believe, what is right and wrong, what should, could and can and will we do is really important. And we need to be discussing.
Well, the scary thing about it is too, I'll add this, is that there's kind of a, like you kind of get what you bargain for. Like, for example, over the years, like if I've talked about the dangers of getting all these vaccines that they talk about getting, a lot of people will get mad. I've had so many people over the years get mad at me and say, "Oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist." And I would never, even if that's true, I don't want to know it because I can't live in a world that's that dark. And how are you not like miserable every day and going crazy and sad because the world's really that crazy and dark? Mm-mm. Well, here's the thing: if you choose not to listen to these things and go your own route, and you want to be blue pill and accept the system, you don't escape. Like, you get what you pay for. You get the consequences of accepting that diet. You get the consequences of the vaccines. So the people who don't listen to us, they really get what they pay for. I mean, it's not, and I'm not saying that with pleasure, but I'm saying that the system is in a way almost set up to where if you're not strong enough or able or willing to figure this stuff out, then you're going to be your own demise. You're going to be your own sterilization. I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying that's the reality of how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like we build our own nest and we got to sleep in it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what's so freaky about this cultural push towards all this madness and towards all this nonsense. And part of why, we decided to make a move out into a rural area where we could afford to live a lifestyle that we wanted to live and where there were like-minded people around. It's like I don't want to live in California for many reasons. No kinship do I have with the average Californian, right? It's a totally fragmented, isolated society, and the average person doesn't know their neighbors, right? It's like people are and there are rural communities in California, but it's very difficult to live in an area. But some of these vegan advocates, you got like Rich Roll. He lives in one of the best areas of California, in Malibu Canyon. And his house didn't burn down in the fire because it was being protected by during the massive wildfire. So Rich Roll's out there promoting veganism, this is the way to do it. It's crazy. It's this disease of affluence. You see, you don't see there's no vegans in my rural community in Ecuador.
I almost view it in a weird, I mean, not literally, but kind of in a tongue-in-cheek prophetic way that when I was out there, it was 2 weeks before the fires. And so Topanga Canyon's right next to Malibu. So I was speaking at that big hippie event, and I was at, I don't know if you saw my tweet about this, but I was at the Westworld set. So it's where they film Westworld, which is about the bots rebelling and overtaking the humans, by the way.
Yep.
And the whole set 2 weeks later just completely burned down. Like, it's all gone. Yeah. I almost saw it like, kind of a weird, almost apocalyptic, not literally apocalyptic, but in a little localized, rhetorical sense.
It's like if you were writing the story, you would have known that meant something in the greater context of the story. Yeah, I've had a lot of things like that happen to us since we left California.
I'm there talking to all these hippies, and it wasn't a huge crowd. I probably had 50, 60 people listening to me, but there's all these hippies walking around, and I'm like, this is all social engineering. It's all a trap. Don't listen to this, fake counterculture. It's a trap. And then 2 weeks later, the whole thing burns down.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I'm not happy that those people were burned, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just crazy.
Absolutely not. No, it's terrible. Poor little Miley Cyrus. You guys check out Miley Cyrus's Patreon. You can help to fund the rebuilding of her mansion if you need. That poor Lady Gaga lost the house too. These are people who need your help. So you can find them on Patreon, guys.
Did Lady Gaga's mansion burn down?
I heard that. I don't know if it's true, but I just saw what's his face? The Roosh put some
I'm gonna go to their Patreon, dude. I'm right now. I'm gonna donate.
I don't know if they really have Patreons. That would be funny. But Roosh put up a tweet, and it was like about Miley Cyrus's house getting burned down, and Roosh's tag was "a cleansing fire washes through California" or something like that. He was pretty harsh about it. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, no, it sucks. I got friends who lived in Malibu, and who weren't very rich, who were like, their parents had bought land there 3 generations ago, and they still kind of live there, and their neighbors are like Will Smith and shit, and it's just a weird area out there. It's a very strange place, really, really weird place, and
I think David Lynch's house is there too. I hope his house didn't burn down.
Dude, David Lynch, that guy. I would love to sit down and have some coffee with David Lynch.
A cup of Joe.
Did you write a David Lynch article back in like 2009?
Dude, it's one of the best chapters in the first one.
And you wrote that back in like 2009 or 10? Because I read an article online.
No, I wrote it before. I wrote it probably 2015.
Because I had watched his films, the 2 of them. Inland Empire and Mulholland Drive, and I remember reading an article back in 2009 because I watched Mulholland Drive, and there was all these references, it seemed, to Kathy O'Brien's book. Like, there was these subtle references to that, and I was freaked out, so I had to go look it up. And I remember there's somebody who wrote an article saying that they claimed that David Lynch used Kathy O'Brien's crazy ass book as source material for that movie. It was on a forum maybe or something, but they didn't prove it. They didn't show. They didn't document. They just claimed. So who knows?
No, I did include, Mulholland Drive, and I meant to put Lost Highway in part 2, but there wasn't enough space. But I did put a long Twin Peaks analysis in Mulholland Drive in the first book. But what was neat about that was that I wrote my analysis of Twin Peaks, and it did really well. Put it on the blog a long time ago, 2015. And then, like, right after that, Mark Frost wrote his book preparing for the new season of Twin Peaks, and he's the co-creator of Twin Peaks with Lynch. But the weird part was that everything that was in his book confirmed my analysis, because people have been debating what Twin Peaks is about for 20 years. Yeah. And so everything that was I'm not saying he read it, but it was just funny to me that, like, man, my analysis was spot on. I nailed all of it. And
what did you think Twin Peaks was about? Just, I mean, you don't have to give away your whole article or your whole chapter there.
Well, it's a lot of different things, but just simply put, it's a satire of America. It's a satire of soap opera culture, which was, a lot bigger in the early 90s than it is now. But
the music was hilarious. The music was so funny.
America's kind of a soap opera. It's a neo-noir. It's dark satire. It's all those things at once, but it's also a commentary on the esoteric, that there's a darker side to America, to ritual cults, to human sacrifice, all the stuff that people have no idea about, that I think does exist. And I think that it's pretty crazy that was on mainline TV back in the 90s, because 1991, 92 mainline TV was pretty, I mean, it was dumb, but it was pretty tame. And this is pretty like, whoa, out there type stuff.
Well, yeah. And even when he tied it up in the end, right, the fours, or what was it? Frank was the guy? Was it Frank? Who was the spirit that...
Frank is in Blue Velvet, but Bob is basically, he's a demon, and he possesses the serial killer. Before he possessed Wyndham Earl, the serial killer, before that he possessed Laura's dad, who was molesting her.
Yeah.
So she's the prom queen.
Prostituting her out, right?
Exactly, and pimping her out.
So it was about child sex slavery and all that stuff too. Which, I mean, where do you see that ever getting discussed, except for in banned YouTube channels?
Oh, and suddenly, exactly. It's all in the news, and right.
You mentioned Blue Velvet. That movie is so disturbing. I watched that one time. I couldn't watch it again. It was so just because I knew that what's his face. What's the actor?
Kyle MacLachlan.
Pabst Blue Ribbon. What's his name?
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper. That guy is a madman.
He is a man. In fact, he comes up in Dave McGowan's Laurel Canyon book as a big part of the Laurel Canyon scene, who was very into the occult and was quite literally, I mean, I don't know Dennis Hopper, but I'm saying the way Dave speaks of him in the book is that he actually was like a madman, like Frank, the character in Blue Velvet.
Well, it's like anybody who's ever done theater or something like that understands that it could be a dangerous practice. You could tell that he was pretty deep into that character to an extent that became very disturbing. But you know what I really like?
The really weird sex stuff, that seems to come out,
And just so abusive to everybody around him.
Psychopathic,
Very, 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 and enjoying the abuse, right? Like really enjoying the abuse. One of my favorite, I did like Mulholland Drive. I think that was probably my favorite. What's your favorite Lynch film?
I like Dune. I like Lost Highway. I like Firewalk with Me, the Twin Peaks movie. I like Mulholland Drive. Okay. The older I get, the more I like Lost Highway. I think it's a better film than Mulholland Drive nowadays.
Lost Highway.
I would have at one time had that reversed, but now I think it's the other way around. Those are Inland Empire. I like it okay, but it's so long and dark and
so disorienting too.
It's so difficult and disorienting to watch that it's hard to really like it. You can appreciate aspects of it, but it's a little too disjointed. But I think he's one of the few directors that usually does well. I mean, because I grew up as a sci-fi nerd. I mean, even his hated movie Dune, I'm a big fan of it, just because I like the Dune novel. The story's great. It has a lot of predictive programming in it. And it was a noble attempt at making the most difficult sci-fi story ever that nobody can seem to pull off. I think they're going to try to do it though. There's a new version. Somebody's trying to make Dune.
Wow. Is it Denis Villeneuve or whatever, the guy who made Blade Runner?
Maybe that was who it was going to be, and a lot of people keep trying, but they can't pull it off. There was going to be Jodorowsky was going to do it, and Salvador Dali was going to play Baron Harkonnen, and he demanded that Jodorowsky pay him $1 million a minute for every minute he was in the film. And so I don't know if this is true, but the story is Jodorowsky said, "Okay, yeah, dude, I'll do that." And then so he filmed him for like 5 or 6 minutes, and since the movie never aired, he never paid him anything. But Salvador Dali was a complete lunatic, and I mean
that guy was. You could see him at these these galas with a lot of these European elite. Like, have you seen some of those photos?
He's at I think he went to some of the Rothschild stuff, and he would hang out with Man Ray and John Houston who
Wow.
are supposed to be part of the Black Dahlia Circle.
Yeah, yeah, the John Houston. That's interesting. And his daughter is Angelica Houston, right?
Angelica, right? It was at her house supposedly that Roman Polanski
Yep.
had the incident with the 13-year-old girl. I think that's
Wow. Yeah. And now Roman Polanski is lauded in Hollywood as this hero.
yeah, and I think he's still in France. He can't come to America or something. So yeah, they've been trying to say for a long time, like lift the ban on Roman Polanski or whatever.
Well, yeah,
Which
Lost Highway. I might have to revisit
I
Lost
did
Highway.
hear somebody have a good point on that one time. They said, well, you can say Roman Polanski is a bad guy. It's like, but America just celebrated the deaths of George W. Bush, and now the media has rehabilitated Bush Jr. And arguably they are more evil than Roman Polanski. I mean, Roman Polanski hasn't been responsible for the death of like 1 million Iraqis. So
No,
I guess
Bush Jr. is so cute. Did you see him and Michelle Obama have such a sweet
Yeah.
relationship? Did you see all
Yes, have a piece of candy. Have a piece of candy, Michelle.
That's so funny. Yeah, yeah.
Real butterscotch or peppermint.
The media just like destroys these people and acts like they hate them for
And then
decades.
I remember how they used to destroy McCain.
Yeah, McCain, the warmonger.
Like McCain was the villain like in 2009, 10, and then
Hero
now
now.
McCain is like an American saint like Ronald Reagan.
He's amazing. McCain was such a great American. It's like
I'm
American hero.
McCain is a great American. I fought in the War of 1812. I've been here fighting for America when I was calling out and lying on all my POW buddies to escape the prisoners. So I didn't want to be a prisoner of war, so I lied my way out, but I'm a hero.
That's a pretty good McCain voice. That was pretty damn good. That was polished.
Bam, bam, bam.
I was talking about this scene from Mulholland Drive with my wife the other day, and it was kind of very reflective of American culture and just kind of the falseness of how people live their lives these days. And I like how that movie starts out, and it's so weird and fake, and it's like this girl and her grandparents are sending her off to
Yeah, the sock hop dance.
yeah, and she's like at the airport, and her grandparents, okay, honey, go off to Hollywood, and she's like, okay, grandma,
I'm gonna be a star.
and it's just so fake, and you're like, what is going on with this film? This is really strange, and it's like that. The vibe is so fake, the whole time up until she's auditioning, and she goes into this audition, and this creepy old like producer guy shows up, and it just gets so real and so hypersexual and so just very predatory, erotic. And it was just, that was a fascinating scene to me. And it's funny now with all the, everyone talking about Harvey Weinstein and stuff like that.
Yep.
And the casting couch.
Exactly.
And it's like
Exactly.
the only moment that the woman seemed like a human being is suddenly she's hypersexualized as a victim being dominated by a much older man. Who apparently, allegedly, it seems in the movie like this is the first time she met him.
Right.
And that scene was so dark and so well done, and the way that it switched up everything mentally, I thought that was a good piece of filmmaking, and it only has that effect once when you first watch it. So, but
that aspect is similar to what we see in what all three of the Hollywood trilogies. So whether it's Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive or Inland Empire, the three female leads are all presented as either actresses aspiring to be actresses involved in Hollywood to some degree, in movies in some degree. And in every case, there's a presentation of them as basically either porn stars or crack whores. I mean, the Laura Dern character is presented in one version, and whether it's an alter in her mind or an alter reality, I'm not sure. I think it's supposed to be an alter version of her, but she's just hanging out of this whorehouse with a bunch of nasty, skanky whores. We see the Julia Ormond character is basically wandering the streets, and if I recall, doesn't the end of Inland Empire have Laura Dern as basically a crack whore on the street?
I think that's how it ends, right? That's like the last scene, and she's just burnt out and done.
Exactly. The Naomi Watts character, it turns out, was an aspiring actress who ended up a crack whore, hiring a hitman to kill the lead because she didn't get the role.
Yep.
And then the Patricia Arquette character is aspiring actress, perhaps, who basically was in porn, and then the Fred Madison character basically finds out, oh baby, what were you doing all those years? Oh, I was sorry, I forgot to tell you, by the way, boyfriend, fiance, whatever, I was in porn for a long time. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that. That was my old porn director at the party. So all three of those, me and my friends call the Hollywood trilogy. They all have that same theme, that it's basically just a machine that swallows up people and spits them out.
Right, and just destroys all their moral compass, destroys their humanity essentially,
and on a social wider scale, that's what it does to everybody else too.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why I was thinking about that scene too. Is just how, the only time people feel more. I don't know, just how false people are in their life is it's so sad these days with all the social media, with all the posturing, with all the the selfies. It really is sad to see a lot of people in my generation just living this kind of.
Dude, have you seen Under the Silver Lake yet?
No, I'm gonna have to watch that one.
You got to watch this. It's very Lynchian type of movie, and it's basically a millennial who is looking at Hollywood and pop culture. He's a big fan. I think he's just hanging out. I don't think he wants to do movies. I think he wants to do. He's a writer. He wants to write a screenplay or write a comic book or something like that. I can't remember what his goal is, but he's just kind of hanging out, partying, and having fun and living a hedonistic life. So he starts noticing that there's patterns in movies and there's patterns in pop culture, and he starts wondering if it's on purpose. So it leads him down this long rabbit hole. He meets all these chicks who are, aspiring actresses, and they're basically just whores. They're basically like they're brought into prostitution and they're sleeping their way into these roles. So he starts wondering, like, is that how they're getting ahead? Is that what's going on? And he goes down this long ass rabbit hole, and I won't spoil it, but he finds the people that control culture and confronts them. And I'm gonna have to watch it again because I'm not exactly sure what I think the ending is yet, because I've only seen it once.
Yeah.
But it's actually got some funny stuff to it. A little raunchy in some parts, so I'm not recommending it. Don't watch it with kids. But if you're a fan of Lynch and you like critiques of Hollywood and the idea of pop culture conspiracies, Under the Silver Lake is worth watching.
Have you watched? I think I tweeted it to you before, a scene from it. But have you watched Spring Breakers yet?
I still haven't yet.
That's an interesting movie. All right, so first of all, you got James Franco, who did Kenneth Anger films and stuff, and he's really this weird.
Well, Harmony Korine is from Nashville, and I've never met Harmony Korine, but we have some mutual people in our friend circles. But he's made some interesting films. I thought Kids was interesting, but he's also made some pretty out there stuff like Trash Humpers.
Yeah, and Gummo was like this really.
He did do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but, I haven't seen Trash Humpers, but Kids was really influential when I was growing up. I thought it, obviously it was a harsh movie, but it was reflective of that reality for sure. Spring Breakers is cool, man. It's got the Disney princesses in it, just like
really
horrified. Yeah, it's Selena Gomez, Justin Bieber's ex-girlfriend. She plays a character called Faith. And the movie starts out with them in the dorm rooms, and it just shows college life for these kids and how degenerate it is, and it's very empty, and they all speak in Facebook status posts, basically.
Weird speak, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it's narrated through their voices at times as if they're talking to their mother or grandma, and it's very jarring the way that the imagery relates to what they're saying. So it's like, oh, I'm meeting all these amazing people here at spring break, and it just shows these gross guys, the ATL twins, who were these pop culture figures a few years ago, and there's snakes around in this room, and very serpent in it, and they're snorting coke, and it's just disgusting. And they're like, oh, that's so amazing, I'm learning so much.
Was it based on Riff Raff? I remember thinking is that guy Riff Raff.
Dude, James Franco's Riff Raff is based on James Franco's character, because James Franco is so crazy in this movie. There's this scene where he's jumping around on a bed and he's like, "Look at all my shit."
But Riff Raff had that exact same look, aesthetic, and everything before the movie.
Totally, yeah. It looks just he looks freaky, man. There's this reveal shot where he's in the courtroom. The girls get arrested for being at a party and there's coke or something, and this long shot on a steady cam of him smiling and his grills popping out. It just looks disgusting, dude. And he just the way every line he delivers just sounds so slimy and just so gross. I think I'm in love with y'all. He's got this southern accent. He's all greasy like Rapido.
It's hard not to like Riff Raff, though. I mean, I think Riff Raff's funny.
Riff Raff's hilarious. Remember when he got on steroids and got like 200 pounds, was all jacked and eating all the time? That was so funny. He's like, I don't do crack, I just work out now. But yeah, that film's good, man. I think you'd like Spring. I mean, it's a horrible.
I'll have to watch Spring Breakers. I'm surprised. I think I just forgot about it. Yeah, it's
a horror movie, and it's all about MTV culture. And they've got a Britney Spears song in it at one point. I thought it was well done, and the ending is really interesting. I'd be interested to see how you interpret.
Remember the Richard Kelly film? His last one.
That one with The Rock.
Yeah, remember there was
Pimps Never Die.
There was an interesting commentary on the pop. There was like a Britney type pop girl. Remember that? I need to go back and rewatch that.
Just remember the line "Pimps Never Die" and like all these weird resurrection scenes and like.
That would be a good analysis to do. Maybe.
I think, dude, I really think you'd like. Yeah.
What's that movie? I'm going blank. What is it?
Oh man, I forget. I'm sure if you just. I'll look it up right now. Donnie Darko, that was one of my favorite films growing up, though.
Yeah, Donnie Darko's good.
What is that film called? The Rock. There was several versions of it. There was the director's cut that was like an hour longer. Southland Tales.
Southland Tales, that's it.
Yeah.
I thought Southland Tales was pretty good. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was pretty good. And then Richard Kelly, like totally went like Hillary cuck. So anytime I see those directors, like, it's like you make these really interesting critiques on culture and society, and now you're like total Democrat cult member.
It seems like that happens with so many people from these different subcultures, and I think it all comes down to just like what are they grounding their worldview in? Like everybody sees the problems. We can all see this. There's divine revelation showing us always what we're doing wrong, what's going on. But if you can't ground your reality in the truth, then you're going to be deceived really quickly.
And everybody is worried about getting a job and work, and entertainment is dominated by the left. So
yeah, right. If your bottom line's affected, it's hard to admit that you might not be doing the right thing. Donnie Darko was a funny movie.
I'm gonna check out Utopia, and I'll check out Spring Breakers.
Sweet.
And you check out Under the Silver Lake. Tell me what you think.
Cool. Yeah, we do a podcast. Maybe do it on your channel sometime. We talk about some of these movies. When you watch these things, let me know.
The next stream, you come on mine, and let's have these movies watched, and we'll go through them.
Okay, cool. Which one do you want to do first? Utopia is like 13 episodes.
Let's do Under the Silver Lake, and because since Utopia is a series, I'll do you watch Under the Silver Lake, and I'll watch Spring Breakers.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, so everybody in the audience, thanks for hanging out. Check out jaysanalysis.com. Jay's got a YouTube channel. Both are linked down below. Check out his new book. I bought myself a signed copy. You don't get it from Amazon. Get it from Jay. He will sign it.
The shop, you go to the website, there's a shop. You can purchase it there.
If you pay him $100 extra, Jay will sign my name on the book.
I signed Riff Raff on it, dog.
He'll sign Riff Raff. He'll sign it as David Lynch if you want.
I'll autograph it as David Lynch.
Dude, yeah, we got to get David Lynch on the podcast. That'll ever happen.
Do you remember when he came on? I remember I was listening to Alex Jones back when he came on Alex Jones and talked about 9/11.
When was that? 2003?
Probably.
Does Alex Jones talk about 9/11 ever anymore?
I think he did yesterday, because there's going to be a document dump by a hacking group of 9/11 information.
The Q. Wow.
No, this is supposed to be this is if you listen, I'll put it this way. I check in on Alex Jones every now and then.
He's entertaining.
And I happened to listen to a little bit of it yesterday. So the first hour of yesterday's show, he talks about this whole 9/11 document dump and who's behind it.
It's been so interesting seeing his trajectory over the years, right? Like when I first heard him, it was like, well, what's up with this guy? Is this guy a shill, or is this guy for real? I feel like everybody tunes in Alex every once in a while to try and see what the heck he's really about. He's the Alex Jones enigma. People in the chat are saying he's a shill. But yeah, I think it's funny. Everybody can seem like a shill to everybody else. if they disagree with one thing that you believe, right? So it's like everyone's a shill. Bill Hicks, they're saying. Yeah. People are saying I'm actually a trans bald person. That's true. I'm not actually bald. I shaved my head. See, there's fuzz, guys. I'm trans bald. Trans vegan also.
What if you're a trans? Does that mean you're normal?
Dude, you just blew my mind. I don't even know. Trans.
That's the sound of one hand clapping.
The sound of one hand clapping. Sound of one hand fapping, more like, oh, snap.
Hey, dude, I'm going to have to I gotta go do something. But
yeah, me too,
thank you for having me on.
Thanks a lot, dude. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's always great talking to you, Jay. Have a great day. Everybody, thanks for watching. Hashtag eat meat, make families. Let's take back our health, take back our families, and take back our cultures, guys. We got to discuss where we're bringing these cultures, where we're going to drive this cultural train. And I'm glad that everybody in the audience and people like Jay are out there asking the real questions and getting deep on what's real and what's going on. So check out jaysanalysis.com, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, reflections.